Hey everyone, happy Saturday. Hope you guys are doing well. I am so excited for tonight because I have Lit from My Life is Awesome here chatting with gonna chat with us about some weirdness tonight. We discussed talking about ancient tech, ancient civilizations, and of course that kind of branches off into the whole topic of why you can't trust the Smithsonian. So we kind of, we were like, should we focus on that or should we completely derail it? But you know what? We're gonna do a little of everything, and we're gonna see where the night and the live chat takes us. So before I do that, I just want to say hi to everybody in the live chat. Thanks, guys, for coming back. As I always thank you guys every week. I'm always shocked people come back, so thank you. Jay for the win. Brian, it is now. Crypto Journeyman, YouTube, Mr. Okel. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I am, like I said, I'm excited for tonight. I'm excited to hear what you guys think about this topic. And as you guys know, I love interacting with the chat, but sometimes I can't multitask when I'm chatting. So I will be going back and forth between the chat and our discussion intermittently. And without further ado, I'm gonna bring on Lit. Hey Lit, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. What's happening, girl? How are you?
All right, I'm doing all right. I'm very intrigued by what you said your research, your interests, your areas of interest are, because you know what, in our strange world, as weird as our world is, not enough people actually have any interest in diving into the weird. Everybody wants to pretend it's this neat little box, and as you know, it certainly
Not me.
is not.
No, I love this. I love the weird stuff. I love your channel. I think it's rad what you're doing, and you're actually embodying what Richard Hart asked us to do. He asked to grow the community, but not just all regurgitate and parrot the same information out, and to actually expand. So you're doing this cool high strangeness channel with all this killer ancient tech, and it's like then you can funnel it back to the crypto world that we're in, and it's just totally awesome. I think it's great what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And also, I never knew that he kind of said that.
Yeah,
Sometimes
he
I'm a little
did.
out of the loop on things he said. Okay, that's cool. Because sometimes I feel a little funny, this kind of came out of the Hex and Pulse world, but I sometimes feel like I don't fit in because I don't feel very good at talking about that, So I don't feel, I don't know, you know what I mean? Educated
I
enough on
do.
crypto, yeah. So I kind of feel like an outlier. So so it's nice to
So
hear that.
with crypto, you just take it in baby steps. It's
Hmm.
like you're earning a PhD and you don't get the degree in a week. And if you did, it wouldn't be valuable because everyone would have one. So what you
Yeah.
do with crypto is you just start in the beginning and you learn, okay, not my keys, not my crypto, centralized
Mhm.
exchanges, they take the power, private exchanges. Richard Hart is a freedom guy, and we're in Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX, and you just start from there and start learning about each project.
Yeah, no, truly, it definitely is a baby step process because I got into it in 2020, and I do feel like, yeah, leaps and bounds ahead of where I was then, and it totally was through the baby steps. But like when you look at everything there is to explore, I still feel
Yeah,
like,
there's so
yeah,
much.
I'm like, I still feel so behind. So sometimes I'm like, I don't feel like I can speak well enough on this, but I'm like, yeah, where else can I exist in this community? And I guess I'm having a lot of fun with this, and
It
it's interesting because like there really seems to be a big intersection in this community of people who are into questioning the world around us, people that aren't going to take the narrative at face value, which makes sense because
exactly.
we are the outliers in the crypto world. We're not looking at things the same way as everyone else. We're not falling into the same trap, so it only makes sense that the rest of our worldview would follow suit, I think.
So I can actually explain why that is. I mean, it's just in my
Mhm.
opinion, but I think I have a grasp on it. So when Richard Hart got started, he's one of the last remaining cypherpunks. And essentially what that is it's a dude who likes freedom on the internet, freedom of speech. He wants to be able to have code that's immutable, that can't be hacked. He tries to teach us how to keep our freedom intact. And he goes against a lot of stuff that is mainstream. He does
Mm.
not promote things. He's kind of a contrarian in that way. And he's usually right. So he's so smart. People glommed on to how he would just take a knife and just cut through so much of the BS in the crypto game. And in order to be a Richard Hart fan, you have to understand he's not on centralized exchanges. He's not willing to play ball. He's not willing to take his product and give them a big bag so that they can control his chart. And that's what other cryptos have to do. So anything on a centralized exchange is like that. And that ethos that he has for freedom, it carries over into the user base. So people like me and you who are like more willing to question something, we resonate more with Richard because he's questioning the industry and he's questioning the status quo and he's trying to get us our autonomy in crypto. And I think that's why it parallels. That's why people who are attracted to Richard and in the community, they can totally understand this stuff because they're like, oh, Hex is gatekept from CoinMarketCap and other coin sites. It's the same as the Smithsonian. It's exactly the same. It fully parallels. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, when you start researching this ancient technology, you find that sites, like the actual site where they found an ancient city and the tech that's in it, what happens is organizations or institutions, they take over the site from the original person who found it. And that is when it gets gate kept. Have you found that in your research?
Oh, for sure. It's as a kid, the Smithsonian is like this cool place you get to visit if you're ever in DC, and it's like this place of wonders. But like, man, as an adult into the research, you really do see that they are the enemy. And I've never looked at it that way. The parallels, between Richard Hart and the crypto world and the gatekeeping going on, it truly is that. And it's funny because I guess the world just has patterns. Everything falls into patterns. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Everything just repeats itself. And it's funny because one of the things I've come across, in this research is the constant saying that, the Smithsonian has the bones. The bones are at the Smithsonian. They come in, the cleanup crew. Oh, there's something, or like the Men in Black from the movie, not the real Men in Black. We're gonna bury every single bit of evidence. And the crazy thing about that is it's like one rabbit hole, or I like to call it duck hole here, after another, where it just, it leads into, well, why are they hiding? Okay, they're trying to change history. Why are they trying to change history? Oh, because this, and then this, and this, and this. There's never any end to it. There's never any answers, right? Are you finding one after the other too?
100%. And so in psychology, there's something called the island study. I forget the exact term, but I remember it as the island study. And I did a stream on this like almost 2 years ago. But what the island study is they took 100 people, and they did this many times, and they found it's always the same outcome. But they take 100 people and they give each person $1. And now everyone, within a matter of like 3 days, okay, all the dollars are in 3 people's hands. You follow? So everyone starts with $1, and within 72 hours, there's like a couple dudes who have all the money. And that study is a microcosm of the macrocosm that's happening in our Earth plane. So if you imagine like 7-8 billion people on this planet, a few have all the money. And it's based in our root psychology. There's alphas, there's leaders, and then there's followers, there's betas. But it's really just in the brain connections. Some people, they see the world, they assert themselves. Other people, maybe their body doesn't work as good, or their mind isn't as quick, or they don't have as much confidence. So they don't want the pressure of being on the front lines as a leader. And that's what we see. We find that there's this, at least that's what I found. There's like a small group, and that small group ends up controlling the large group. It's just like the island study.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess we are kind of predictable as humans. and to jump into a deeper, rabbit hole with the island study. Actually, let me jump back to the island study. And what's amazing is that it's not just one study. They tried this everywhere. What is it? The Stanford prison experiment. They try these experiments over and over. They change things up, and it's always the same results. That's just baked into our nature. It's baked into our genetics. And so, jumping off of that, jumping into human nature, like one of the other things I've kind of have started believing, actually, as I've gone down this rabbit hole, is that it's not just us as the sentient species, that there's giants, that, oh, maybe reptilians are a thing. Like, have you gotten that deep into that rabbit hole,
Oh, I've
or
gotten so deep. Okay, so
okay.
just so you know, like I think like 10 years ago, I almost started a channel that wasn't crypto. It was ancient civilizations and their
Ah,
tech. Like
uh-huh.
I started a website, I put the photos up, I was planning episodes, and I just was supremely passionate about it. And I think I think the root of that is that how I was raised.
Mm,
I think everyone has to look at how they're raised because our brain, there's studies that have just recently come out and they show that by the time you're 5 years old, 50% of your neurosynaptic connections are already secured. And what that
mhm,
means is that the behavior you emit to the outside world is 50% pre programmed by the time you're 5. So by the time you're 18 years old, so literally check that out, 5 years, half your brain's wired. By the time you're 18, 95% of your brain is is already wired up. And what that means is that these neurosynaptic connections that all link our brain chemistry, they control how our minds actually work. And
mhm,
it's kind of like I use an example of policemen. Policemen all over the world, they know that whenever they take eyewitness testimony, it's never the same. And there's a thing where it's really hard to count on eyewitness testimony. For example, there's 12 people on an intersection at different corners and there's a car accident and the cops show up and they ask all 12 people what happened and they get 12 different stories. It's very common.
yeah.
So the way I understand that is that the mind is wired up differently. And that's why everyone sees something different. It's because the foundation of how their mind is working is telling them, it's giving them different input and output.
Mhm. And the interesting
Oh,
thing
I
about
love Jay Z. Sorry,
Jay-Z,
Jay Z is so rad. You got to get to know him. Do you know him?
what, the name looks familiar, but I don't think we've ever interacted that
He is
much.
one of the coolest dudes in our community. I got so much love for you. Much love, bro.
Oh, that's awesome. Hi, Jay-Z. Yeah, yeah, this is one of the awesome things about doing this and getting to be in the live chat, is getting to meet really cool people. And like I said, some familiarity, you have the familiarity with names you see over and over. Like, I've seen your name
I
before,
do.
Jay-Z Hexing. And then it's cool because then in time we just all get to know each other, like lit, I've seen you here and there all over. And then now we finally get to, yeah, kind of chat with each other. Um, but yeah, I wanted to touch on one of the points you made in there about the brain mainly being wired, mostly being, halfway wired by 5. It's so interesting because, there is that push for schooling and government schooling, and kindergarten used to not be a requirement, and now it is in most places. And
Oh
and
my
now a push
gosh.
where public schooling wants to have preschool. And it's interesting because it's like, okay, well, does the government, first of all, we know the government doesn't really care about us. So what is this interest in getting their hands on everybody's children so early and so quickly? Well, when you look
Oh
at the brain
yeah.
wiring, you can,
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
right? You can make little
Absolutely.
perfect citizens who don't question the narrative, get them early, get them young.
For
Yeah, yeah.
you're so right. And not only that, like if you look at current events, we are literally looking at crypto regulations that are leading to a social score, and your
Mm,
social score, quote, bad behavior. That's why that just so you know, that's why everyone is so against SBF. What he proposed for crypto regulations is that they're going to be able to freeze blockchain transactions based off your behavior. And that behavior, where does it come from? Where is the indexing? How do they know what score you have? What's good behavior?
mhm.
What's not good behavior? It comes from a social credit score piloted in China. So all of this stuff, it directly relates to your channel because you're looking at high strangeness, right? You're looking at events the major media will not cover. What happens if that's deemed bad behavior? Think about
I'm
it.
gonna be in
Now
trouble.
your whole Yeah, exactly. Now your whole channel and
Yeah.
everything you do is questioned. And in China, they have a pilot program where you
Mm.
have like the technology. There's a company called Vuzix, and you put glasses on, and it projects like numbers and letters over people. So like it can scan a face and it'll show a number. And in China, they're saying this is what they're going to do. You're going to have these people or video cameras, and the video camera will facially recognize you, and it'll put up a number, and that number is your credit score. And if you spit gum on the side of the sidewalk, your number goes down, and then there's restrictions based off that. So that is so, like, that vibe is so vile to me. I'm so against that type of energy. I'm really just a simple freedom guy. I believe like the government is supposed to be civilian appointed people, and they're supposed to have a term. Like literally the way the Constitution is written is that civilians are supposed to appoint officials, and then they serve their term. And like, let's say a Safeway worker becomes a politician because he was voted in. After that term, they're supposed to go back to work at Safeway. Like, to my knowledge and all the research I've done, that's how it looks. But what happened is there was a career made out of politics. So now
Yeah.
politicians, they're in politics for their whole life. It's like a whole thing. And then they become extricated from the civilian life. So the people who are passing our laws, they're not even connected to the way that most people live.
Oh my gosh, so
So,
out of touch. Look at the Pelosi's. Yeah.
but the reason I bring all that up is because it connects to this strange stuff that we find. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed because I had tons of slides that I wanted to share in this presentation of like stuff that I've researched that will blow your mind. And I put a bunch of work into it, but the StreamYard is not allowing me to upload, so we can just talk about it. But
Mhm.
do you want to get cracking onto that stuff?
Well, here's the couple ways we can do it, because like you put all that work into it, and I don't want it to just not get used. So you could come back for a part two, or we can do it on your channel. If you want to start doing this
Yeah,
stuff on your channel, or you can just talk about it without the slides. So and we can just,
let's
because
let's just talk
apparently we
about
can
it.
riff on a lot of stuff here. What?
Yeah, yeah, I'm absolutely.
So whatever your preference is, you let me know. Do you want to
Okay.
save it for another time, or do you want and talk about anything else here that we can? Because apparently we can talk about any topic.
Yeah, I'm freezing out. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, so I think the first thing I'll say is like, to understand why I got into this stuff in the first place is you have to understand my genesis is when I was young, I
I'm
was
sorry to
raised.
interrupt,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Brian has a suggestion. He says you can share your screen instead of uploading it.
Yeah, I have tons of private stuff that'll dox me out on my computer right now, so I'm gonna just hold off until we'll just do it again another time.
Okay, yeah.
I can pre-send you the file, and like you can have them all. We can talk about it, and then we can do another episode because it's really
Okay,
cool stuff that I found. But we'll just talk about it for now. And
okay.
I think the bottom line is that I first got into this stuff based off how I was raised, and I was raised with incredibly spiritual people around me. Like my mom was an energy healer for almost my whole life, like over 50 years. So she taught me high levels of consciousness and awareness. And when I was sick, it was like she wouldn't be like, "Oh, if your stomach hurts, you need to go drink some Pepto-Bismol." Like, that's not what she would say. She would ask me, "Well, where does it hurt?" And I'd say, "Oh, my stomach hurts so much." And she'd be like, "All right, well, your stomach is guilt. What do you feel guilty about?" And I'd be like, "What?" And like my friends would be there and they'd be like, "Dude, your mom's so crazy. Like your stomach hurts. Like maybe you ate bad food or something. Like your mom's totally crazy." But what she would do is she would walk through the emotion that's stored in the body. And I would find out like, "Oh, well, I didn't finish this test and I said I was going to in school and I missed my friend and I was supposed to play baseball with him and he's super mad at me because there wasn't enough people on the field and I was like supposed to go and they couldn't play the game because I wasn't there." And I'm in like third grade. And she said she would walk me through that. And at the end of it, when I understood what was happening with the emotions in my body, my physical body would feel better.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, like when I was young, I became aware that there's this emotional mind body connection. And that led me into looking beyond what meets the eye. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, oh, definitely. It definitely does. I mean, because I have not exactly, with energy healing or things like that, but my parents have always encouraged like just curiosity, and just having that curiosity as a child and questioning things. And my mom's always been a big questioner of like Western medicine and everything. And yeah, as a kid you don't always get it, but then all of a sudden as an adult you see how it makes you think, you see how that opens your mind, like the fact that your mom was like, okay, let's look at this from a different way, a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With headaches, she would say, all right, stress is a headache. And what are you stressed out about? And I'd be like, oh my God, I have a test tomorrow and I didn't study. And it's like 8 p.m. on a Thursday. And I have a Friday test at school. And I'm in like 5th grade. And she
Mhm.
would be like, okay, you don't actually have a headache. You're stressed out. Your mind's going a million miles an hour. You're beating yourself up. We're going to eat some food. We're going to drink some water. And we're going to get studying. And I'm going to help you. And she would sit down with me. And by the end of it, I would have no headache. And it wasn't just like dehydration. It wasn't fit. It was emotional. So when I learned that emotional mind body connection, I started getting older and I started hearing things. And what I was doing is I was hearing mainstream agendas. And the mainstream agenda immediately, because how I was raised by mama, I was like, well, what's behind that? Like, what's
Mhm.
beyond that? And that's where I would look. I would start looking beyond that article. And what you do is you find these conglomerates in our media. And if you do the research, you find out who Rupert Murdoch is. And this is old.
Mhm.
It might be different now, but this is what I did a long time ago researching. And Rupert Murdoch is a dude who owns like 90% of these major media outlets. And so if you realize the mainstream news, only a few dudes own all of them. What you
Mhm.
understand is that the gatekeeping is real and the
Yes.
messages that's released out is filtered. And that filter is what stops high strangeness stuff from being published. They don't publish that kind of stuff. And you have to look deeper. You have to find independent sources. So that's why I was a little worried with Elon buying Twitter and changing the algorithm. And if you guys don't know, Elon Musk just bought Twitter. The algorithm has already changed. There's people in the community who used to get 2, 3, 4, 500 likes regularly, like every post. For anyone who knows Shalem Defoe, that's my boy. He's always making memes. He's super funny. And his post engagement are so low, I can't even believe it. Same with me. I used to post stuff and get a lot of attention. Now it's completely changing. And I found out if you don't have the blue check mark, you are getting shoved down to the bottom of the results on Twitter. So if you think about all the stuff we're talking about, we're seeing it happen in real time. And that's exactly what happens to this ancient civilization stuff. You don't hear about it. And given my background, it caused me to investigate. So one of the first things that I started learning about was ancient Egypt. And if you look at, okay, let me read Jay-Z. Will you read that out?
Oh, yeah, sure. Damn lit, your mom was such a boss. I love you and your mom. Mama Awesome was so amazing. God bless her soul. And he also had a question that I'm going to ask you before we move on.
Yeah,
But let
just
me
shoot the question.
so he said, lit, have you studied German new medicine?
I actually have not studied German new medicine. I've never even heard of it. So hit me in the chat. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, it sounds like something we're both going to have to look into.
I know. I look. I love learning new stuff, and I want you all to know something. Be a lifetime learner. Okay, learn this from your boy Lit. I've been coaching people a long time, and I want to tell you something. The minute you think you know everything, life's gonna bite you in the ass. All right. It's called Life the Guru. Life the Guru will come teach your ass a lesson once you get cocky and think you have it all figured out. So I am a lifetime learner. I'm not afraid to tell someone, oh, well, I've never heard of German new medicine. What is that?
You know what? And I think that's I think we were made as humans to constantly learn and be curious because, like, how else, would you advance the human race? You know what I mean? If you weren't curious, the things would never be invented. They never would have figured, I
It's,
don't know, out how to cross an ocean. So it's just it's wired into us, and it's true. And because think about like people who aren't curious, who aren't learning, it's almost like they decline over time.
oh
Like
yeah.
there definitely is a decline. You see the people that, keep up with, or exercising their brain the most. Yes, I know there's exceptions to it, but for the most part, those lifelong learners are the healthiest people, the people that you meet who are 100 and they're still just as sharp, which just tells me it's like food or air. It's something that we need as a human being, one of our basics.
Yeah,
Um,
there's actually two studies I've learned I want to reference. One of them is done on people over 100 years old. They asked all these people over 100, what is your secret? Why are you like, how were you living over 100? And not a single person knew. They all had different answers until they analyzed it. And the actual scientists had to find the commonality. And the commonality, they thought it was like what they ate. So they intensely checked in their diets. There was some people who were eating all organic, and there was some people like eating fast food. And they couldn't understand, like, how is this 100-year-old dude having like a burger from a fast food joint, and this person's all focused on their health, and they got it wrong. Guess what they found out it was that actually keeps people living over 100? It was their hobbies. All these people, everyone in the study, they had hobbies, and the hobbies, their mind was frothing to learn more. One dude was a bird watcher, and he had a wheelchair, and he'd wheel his chair here, and he'd get rides, and he'd go to pass, and he was so passionate. The other woman was an artist. There was so many people. Some people were poets. Some people did all these things, but they had hobbies. So the secret to living old is to keep your mind active and excited for life. Once you get isolated, once you lose your hobbies, once you lose motivation to learn and express yourself in new ways, boom, you end up tanking out. And there's a study on people who retire. There's like, I forget the percentage, but it's it's like 40 or 60% people die within 5 years of retiring. I'm not sure the actual percentage, so don't quote me on that.
yeah,
But
but I've heard, yeah.
doesn't it make sense from that other study? It's because they were working, they were active, they're full of life, and then they quit and they lost their purpose. So
Yeah.
having a purpose and a hobby is so important. And the other study I was going to tell you is about human nature, where we're always questioning things and we're always expanding our boundaries. What happened is they put all these people in a giant field with trees and water and everything, and there was a wall. They walled them off. And what do you think happened? The people started exploring, right? Naturally. However, the minute, and I mean the minute that they found this wall, they became obsessed. What the hell is this wall doing? What's behind it? Why are we trapped in here? They started feeling captive. Their psychology flipped on them. They became tribal. At that point, they scoured every single inch in a perimeter until they realized, oh my God, we're fully enclosed. What was their main point? Their main point was to get out.
Mhm.
Now, they did the same thing with animals. And guess what happened to all different kinds of animals they tried, even the crazy ones that are very aggressive? When they see the fence, they walk up to it, they check it, they may do the whole perimeter, but they relax and they find stasis in the area that they live in. They create harmony for themselves in that area. Humans won't do that. The minute we see a barrier, we have to break through it. So that's why human nature is always expanding. And if you bring that to the energy consciousness perspective, you have to understand the intellect and the mind. The way the mind works is the mind analyzes. But once you come to a conclusion, the mind is always expanding. So that is by nature the way the mind works. Once you create something and come to a conclusion, does your mind stop? No, it keeps going. So that continuous action of the mind always has us expanding more. That's why when you study a lot of Eastern philosophies, most notably Buddhism, where you meditate, the whole point is to clear your mind and stop the thought and get into a place of pure presence where you're just in the moment and you're not letting the mind rule you. There's a study in ancient Dzogchen where they have you visualize in your mind that you are sitting and you see a big cliff and a mountain and there's only one path, and it's called looking for the hiker, waiting for the hiker. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to help you calm your mind and wait for one person to walk down the trail. And if you're able to see this person, it's very rare in Dzogchen, but it's an analogy for seeing the mind. And by seeing the mind, it's actually recognizing, whoa, I'm this temporary being in a physical body that's going to die, but my mind is active and my spirit is inhabiting my body. And my mind tells my body what to do. And if my mind is racing a million miles an hour and I'm on TikTok scrolling and then I'm eating and then I'm talking and I'm doing this and I'm going that, you never get a time to actually relax your spirit. And that's what it tries to help you do. It tries to help you just relax and just try to wait for the hiker. And the point of doing that is just to really give you peace. And I think that's so missed in our modern society. Like people don't have these tools. So I learned them very early, and some people do. I just saw Thothschild come in. Much love, brother. He is highly aware. He's an incredibly smart dude. He knows about all the stuff we just talked about. And what's up, bro? Stoked to see you. Stoked to see you,
Oh
Tim
yeah,
Top.
he's
Stoked
awesome.
to see you.
Yeah, we streamed a couple of times together. It's always a blast. It always gets interesting.
Yeah.
And
So
I just wanted to add on what you're saying. And, you were saying in society, the fact that, we never rest. There's always, our brains are always going. There's not that we don't have that peace in society. And it's interesting because, okay, so we have the constant overload of useless information not giving us the peace.
yes, we do.
And right? Because it's still information and learning, but it's useless. It doesn't do much for us. It's like junk food. And then on the flip side of it, you also have like where they killed the curiosity in us and have like through every means necessary, through terrible food, through terrible media, pharmaceuticals, everything you could do, they found a way to kind of to keep people from wanting to see over the wall. Like they do it in every way possible, and it's a double whammy too. It's interesting because I've always just thought about it from that one perspective. Oh, they keep us from being curious. They keep us thinking in a box. They train children that way so that there's never any out of the box thinking or curiosity. But I never thought about it in the sense of being paired now with that sense of no peace too, that constant turmoil. So I'm like, it's a double whammy. It's really disturbing how we're just constantly under attack. There's never and I guess okay, that was about to lead me in another rabbit hole, but you go ahead with what you're gonna say.
Yeah, we can. I feel like we could go a lot deeper, but we'll pull it back.
Yeah.
It's also important to understand, like, in my background, I don't tell people this a lot because I'm a crypto streamer, and like the reality of crypto is I got into legacy finance because I needed to understand finance better. And when you learn about all this stuff outside of the box, you don't always learn finance. So I grew up with energy healing and all this killer stuff, but it wasn't incredibly good. I just had this big heart and I wanted to help people. And I realized I had someone really awesome ask me, what would you do with Bill Gates's money? And I was like 19 years of age. I was living in Boston at the time. And I was like, oh my God, whoa. And I started thinking, and they said, well, what can you do with the amount of money you have in your bank account right now? How many people can you help? Because I get that you want to help. You want to help the earth. I got it. How many people can you help right now? And that's when it hit me for the first time. I'm like, whoa, if you really want to make an impact in this world and do good, you have to be loaded. You have to have never work again money. So part of me, that's why I got involved in the finance game. And legacy led me to crypto, and the rest is history. Now I'm deeply ingrained in the Hex and Pulse Chain community. And I love all y'all. It's really cool. So
no, it's a great
that's
community, and
kind of
it's
that.
interesting because besides having the money to help people, it's this weird paradox of in order to free yourself from the system in order to free yourself from the financial system, you need money to do that.
So and in order to get money, you have to
Yeah.
understand finance. And
It's
like the overview of
you have to play the
it's
game
so
a
gnarly.
little.
Like the 10-second overview for finance, as best as I can put it, is like we are originally governments are supposed to print their money for their citizens, and the citizens have active engagement in that. Okay, like I said, people are civilian appointed. This is how it's like supposed to be written in constitution and everything. What happened in our system is we had a runaway money system where a group of dudes were like, hey, I want control of the money supply, and they're not in the government. So, long story short, The Creature from Jekyll Island, check it out. It's a group of dudes who went, and what they did is they hijacked the money printers. Okay. So, we used to have a gold standard, and gold was connected to the dollar. Once the Bretton Woods happened, that was Nixon, and that actually depegged gold from the United States dollar. So, ever since 1913, when Woodrow Wilson was a president, there used to be, that is when the Federal Reserve happened. So the Federal Reserve that prints our money is actually a private organization. It's not a government entity. And if you look at how laws are made, that entity controls our entire monetary supply. So in order to understand money, you have to understand that, and then you have to understand how you fit into it. And that's why I'm here in crypto. I'm trying to understand all that, and I'm trying to be in a winning team. And ultimately, my goal is to never work again money and have the rest of my life be an amazing journey of helping people. And I think, can you relate? I think a lot of people here are in the same boat. They really want to do good.
I think so. Yeah. No, and I think no, and I definitely relate to that statement too, because like being able to have never work again money, first of all, is freedom to just live the life you want, make your own choices that aren't tied to your circumstances and everything else. I always joke that I don't want the Lambo, I just want the freedom. Um, but also, yeah, all the good you can do is just incredible, with that kind of money. And it's always like you look at these people with that kind of money and you're like, or these billionaires, I'm like, why aren't you doing more? And I'm not one of those people who believe that, redistribute it. We're all entitled to your money, you billionaire. No, but I kind of look at like all that money. Could you be a little more charitable? You can do so many things. You can do so much change. Like Akon. Okay, I don't think he's a billionaire, but look at what he did in Africa. He's done so much good in bringing water and electricity to different villages in Africa. I'm like, why aren't more people doing things like that? You can't rely on governments to do your charity work. Take that extra money and do it. So, and I think the cool thing about the Hex community is it is the most charitable community in crypto. So can you imagine that when Hex and Pulse and PulseX hits its predictions, hits what we're expecting, the good that can flow out from the community?
I truly hope that everything goes off and we get to achieve that. That was the true motivation behind my excitement into these projects. It was to be able to do that. And to your point, like I think I can explain why those billionaires get lost sometimes. Mm-hmm. As a coach for a long time, I've really talked to a lot of rich dudes, and I'll give you my take. I lay this at y'all feet. On the journey to making money, when you have a good heart, let's just say your heart is over here and it's intact and you're 100% good. You're a young kid. You still have the excitement and innocence in your eyes. You want to believe in miracles. You want to do all this stuff. What happens to a lot of people in their adult life is they try to make money and they have to work at a job. And then they realize, I'm never going to get there on an hourly wage. I have to create something. I have to start a business. I have to do something in finance or do this or that. So they go on a new path, and that new path has different challenges. Those challenges begin beating people down, And that pure and innocent nature that you once had as a child starts getting stripped away from you. And what happens by the time you become a millionaire is you have to look on a chart. How much of your good heart is still intact by the time you're a millionaire? Now you're a multimillionaire. What decisions have you had to make to become a multimillionaire? How far away from your center have you strayed? Where is your mind in relation to your body, in relation to your heart? Are they all in alignment? Or have you had to sacrifice certain things about who you are and what you believe in order to get money? Now you go all the way up to a billionaire. A billion is 1,000 million. So you have to gain 1,000 mil stacks to be a billionaire.
Isn't it a million?
And there's some multi-billionaires.
1,000?
So
Okay.
you see, we're like,
no, I'm trying to remember the math. I think it's
no, it's 1,000. Like
okay.
1,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to be wrong on some math like that, but I know 1,000 times 1,000 is a million. So anyway, that's not the point. Forget about the math. All right. The point is this. Here, hit me in chat. Actually, I want to know that I'm right. We got some math wizards in here who can help us.
Yeah. We need somebody else to do it.
The point of what I'm saying is that this is it's a bonding curve up. And the higher up you get, the less and less people there are. So down here, everyone's at, and then as you get higher and higher and making money, by the time you're a billionaire, you have to look at the decisions you've made and how many people have you had to step on to get to where you're at. Because look at something like Tesla. Tesla is a, quote, green technology because it's electric vehicles. Have y'all ever seen what resources it takes to make one Tesla battery? Look it up. Look up the resources that go into one Tesla battery. So you may start out trying to heal the world and reduce carbon emissions and create an electric vehicle. But in the process, you have to mine lithium, copper, gold, silver, and you're going into areas and you're opening up mines. And when you pull rocks out of the earth that have these metals, it takes incredibly harsh chemicals to dissolve them. And those chemicals don't just go away. You have to dispose of them. So copper mines traditionally are one of the most harmful for the earth because the only way to get copper out of the rocks is to literally sit them in a pool of crazy acids. And those acids are horrifying for human health, for animal health, for the environment. However, there's a copper industry. You understand? So on the way to becoming a billionaire, you end up getting involved in technologies that actually hurt the planet and hurt people. And I think that's why by the time people become highly, highly successful at that level, it's almost like that innocence that they had in a child, they've had to put it in a lockbox and throw away the key in some cases. So that's kind of how I see that.
That completely makes sense. I guess also sometimes my mind goes into the conspiracy theory territory, and I'm like, well, not all billionaires, but a lot of them become, billionaires through dark things. So my mind is also there too. The high strangeness thing. But no, what you said makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, the means of getting to it. You lose a lot of that good. You lose a lot of that innocence. And by the way, you were correct. I don't know where my brain went with that. I was thinking of something else.
It's okay. We're doing like we're getting
my strength.
We're getting deep and we're getting wide, so it's all good. We're like going heavy. I thought we were just going to talk about ancient stuff, but this is what it is. And
yeah, like, you know what? Yeah, we'll just follow it. But but let's hop back to what you started saying about Egypt.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. If it's cool with you.
Let's just get into some ancient stuff. All right, I love this stuff, but you guys should have a better understanding of like who I am and why I'm into this alternative reality of that we're fed by the mainstream media. So I first started researching Egypt, and I want every single one of y'all to not research Egypt. All right, listen to your boy Lit. Instead of typing Egypt, type Kemet, Kemet. Thothchild knows what's up. I've talked to him about this stuff. He's a badass. Look at his name. Look at his character. Those are not Egyptian characters. Those are ancient Cometian characters. And Kemet was the all black race. These are gnarly black dudes with incredibly high technology from way, way, way back in the day. And once you start learning about Kemet, you're going to go, oh my God, even Egypt is gate kept. And I want you guys to understand something. Everywhere else in the world, there are archaeologists who go through stuff, right? And in Egypt, there is Egyptologists. So think about that. So Egyptologists have their own portal, their own little, it's like their own microcosm, because there's so much stuff hidden in Egypt that they have to gatekeep it by saying, oh, I'm an Egyptologist. Yeah, like I just study Egypt. And in that, yeah, see, there it is, right there. Thank you, Thos. And in Egyptology, there is a full gatekeeping system. Zahi Hawass, who I used to research all the time, he literally was the Smithsonian of Egypt. So dudes would like find a cavern, okay? This is rampant. People in Egypt, there's the pyramids, right? And then there's blocks and cities outside of the city, right? And check this out. Random dudes right next to the pyramids. They start digging down with the shovel from their house. Like literally, there's people with a dirt floor who just started digging in the middle of a room. And they went straight down 10, 20, 30 feet. Guess what they find? They start pulling up artifacts of gold and different things. And how do we know that this is happening? Because they're broke and they sell it. And all of a sudden, these new artifacts come up. And people are like, what is that? And it was some dude digging down into the ground to find it. Oh my gosh. So what happens once new stuff's discovered? Zahi Hawass, I think he's retired now and there's someone new. I haven't learned who the new dude is. But essentially, once they find what those people are doing, boom, they restrict the area. It's the same as I told you. In the Grand Canyon, there's a cave in the Grand Canyon that is filled, okay? This is a crazy, crazy, crazy thing. It was so cool when I learned this. But in the United States, okay, there's a Grand Canyon. And there was an explorer named Kincaid, okay? And Kincaid scaled an Egyptian wall. It was like a cliff on the Grand Canyon. And he found an entrance. And in the entrance, he found ancient artifacts. They found a statue of a Buddha. Not the Buddha, but it was a Buddha-type dude. They found Egyptian hieroglyphs. They found artifacts. They found gold. Guess what happened to that area of Egypt? If you want to try to find it, guess what? It's illegal. They made it illegal to go there. It's the same.
On top of that, they made it a national park, the Grand Canyon. It wasn't a national park before then. They're like, okay, let's wall this off, make this a national park so that we have jurisdiction over all this. Sneaky. Everything. They did everything they could. Right? The national park thing, I think.
Yeah, he spoke with Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock is the man, y'all. Look into his stuff. I think he's totally legit. He's an explorer and he's great and he's covered a lot of stuff. But I learned about the Grand Canyon. I learned about Egypt. I learned about the gatekeeping. There was another woman in the 70s and she did this digging in Mexico and she carbon dated the artifacts and it said it was 250,000 years old. And before she published it, she was told, do not publish that. And she's like, whatever, dude, like this is what I found. I want to publish it. So she publishes it and she gets removed from the entire archaeological community and never allowed to practice again. And she was a professor with a degree from a major institution. And once she broke the status quo, all her power to investigate was revoked. And there's video of her and she's totally sad. She's like, wow, like I lost my passion. I was never able to do this again. So I just started learning like case after case after case of all this information that wasn't allowed to go to the public. And it's astounding. One of the coolest things I've learned, I don't know if y'all have heard this, but there in the 1930s, okay, this is like almost 100 years ago in Los Angeles, you can look this up. They found an ancient tunnel system underneath the ground. And the tunnel system breached out into the Pacific Ocean. And it's sunken caverns. in the Pacific Ocean, meaning whoever built this, the ocean used to be, the ocean level changed. So in this underground tunnel system, they found gold stashes. They found perfectly formed tunnels. They've researched it. They mapped it out. It's a full thing. I think the article said like Lizard City found underneath LA. It's some wild typing, but it was in the LA Times, and they actually used technology to find these tunnels. Have y'all ever heard about that? No, you don't hear
I've not
about
heard
it
about that
because
one.
yeah, because they keep it gatekept. But if you go on
Mhm.
Google and you check it out, you'll be able to find that. And there's just stuff like this that I kept finding. So I had a passion to learn about it. And if we go back to Egypt, like I was talking about, one of the coolest things that I learned is these ancient people had incredible technology that we cannot match today. There are stones that are so big, we can't actually move them with the technology we have today. And there's no mortar. They fit perfectly together. You can't squeeze a razor blade in between them. And they're all over Egypt. They're all over the world. There's a place called Baalbek in Lebanon, and Baalbek has they're triolithic stones. They're not megalithic. They're like, I forget the exact term, but they're so big, like there's no logical explanation on what moved these stones and what
Mhm.
technology they had. So if you look at high strangeness is, how the hell did they get this technology that's better than what we can replicate today? And I have thought about this a lot, and I'm like pro flood. I believe that I've seen the evidence of a massive flood in this planet. And where I live, I've actually gone out on expeditions and I found cliffs that have fossils buried beneath them. And you can see how it was like a giant flood with that deposited soil. And have you ever heard of Mud Fossil University?
Oh, I've never heard of that. Mud Fossil
Okay,
University.
all y'all get a new tab like on your computer and type in Mud Fossil University. Okay, Mud Fossil University. This is a dude, and he's the one, to my knowledge, he's the one who broke this to the whole world, and he is so gatekept it'll blow your mind. But here's his theory. His theory is that there was an ancient flood, and the bodies of animals and people that got trapped under that floodwater when they died, he believes that depending on where they were, so depending on your geographic location, there's different minerals and minerals are essentially like rocks. Like if you think about rocks are essentially mineral compounds. And whatever minerals are in that area when the flood came, it creates different water and the minerals in the water. So the human tissue, the bodies, and the animals, you know how like when you usually go into an expedition in archaeology, you look for bones because the flesh has died off because it's living tissue and it rots away. In a flood, it's the opposite. What he found is that the bone disintegrates, but the skin tissue absorbs minerals, and those minerals turn it to stone. So Mud Fossil University is the study of going into nature and finding rocks. And when you're looking at rocks, they have these incredible shapes. And if you start thinking of like, oh, that's a tissue sample that's soaked in minerals and turned it to stone, and you start looking, oh my God, that's not a rock, that's this. And there it is, y'all. There's the rabbit hole. Go in it. You will start having so much fun. And this dude challenges people. He says, go in your backyard, wherever you live, and you will find mud fossils. That's what he says. Go into nature and start looking. And once you understand, whoa, the side of that mountain, this is here, this is here. So I learned about this a couple of years ago, and I went on a mission. I started traveling, looking for mud fossils, and I found some incredible ones. Now, fast forward a few years later, I think it was like 6 months ago. It might have been a year ago. But there is a California national park. And guess what they found and actually created? It's online. You can find it somewhere. They admitted, okay, they admitted that a ranger in the park was on a mountainside and he found a difference in the texture of the rock, and he started excavating it, and he found a giant prehistoric creature in the mountain that was stone. And it's exactly what I just told y'all. It's the fossil that had mineralized and turned to stone, the skin part. And they will not disclose the location. Because why? Because they don't want a bunch of people going there and like finding it out. But this is coming out there. So when I'm putting all this stuff together about ancient cultures and mud fossils and really looking at the whole of it, I'm like, what else is going on behind the surface? So that really interests me, all this stuff.
Oh yeah, and it's like, you know, when you bring in the context of the flood, then so many other things start to make sense. Well, it's like, well, we don't know what kind of tech they had before the flood. And then if you want to start getting into, you know, different Christian and Jewish things, there's the thought of the Nephilim brought this technology to the earth, and a lot of them were wiped out in the flood, and that a lot of these structures are pre-Diluvian structures, like the Sphinx is thought to be that. And it just blew my mind the first time I heard it, because for the most part, you know, as a kid, you're taught that that's, you know, part of like all, you know, that it's basically all around a similar time period. And it was relatively recently where I learned, oh no, the Sphinx was ancient to the ancient Egyptians. Like they showed up or whatever.
It was there when they found it.
Yeah, they just found it. And then I've heard that they might have
just found it. And by the way, they found it buried in the sand.
Yeah, so that's very telling too. And the fact that they kind of also like they put on their own face on it, you know, because it was worn down from the elements in a desert, you know, there's water wear on it. It's very strange. And I think what also kind of got me intrigued with the Egypt thing was I had heard that the entrance to the Egyptian like archives are found I think near the Sphinx, near one of its feet. But Egypt, the Egyptologists were like, nope, nobody's allowed. That they you know, their version of the Smithsonian. So that was kind of like my introduction to it. I was like, whoa, what's happening in Egypt? Then I started reading about the tunnels and everything, and then the why comes into play. Like that's an amazing piece of history. If you have Egyptian archives under the Sphinx, oh no, why don't they want us to see it? Is it because we're harder to control when we have our own knowledge, you know, like what is it about it? So I think that, yeah, that's kind of like where my rabbit hole started. Yeah, relatively recently with Egypt. And speaking of the I just wanted to quickly add something. The stone structures, you know, and being too big for people, and just how all of that doesn't make sense. There's this tour, not that I'm being told to promote it, but Megalithic Marvels is doing this tour next year. That sounds absolutely incredible. They're touring people through Egypt to see these sites through our perspective. So they're like tossing aside the regular Egyptology BS, and they're like, here's what the actual likely history of it is. And I'm like, that is such a great idea to bring people around to see so any of you all want to check that out, Megalithic Marvels. I think they're running like a little discount on it right now. If I could, I would.
Is that Brian Forrester?
I don't know his name. Maybe he's like some well-known guy.
I think he's doing his own something tour. Like that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah, I think
so smart.
That was one of my guys. But to talk about the Sphinx, there's a lot to unpack there. And I want y'all to know, Robert Schoch is the first accredited university professor. I think he's an archaeologist. But what he did is he analyzed the enclosure of the Sphinx. And what they found is the Sphinx has certain wear. And the wear is from you know, it's in a desert. So he looked at the sand and the wind damage. So the physics of this is you have to look at stone, leave it in the desert, and desert winds kick up sand, and the sand beats against the rock, and it softens the edges, and it smooths them out. Then what he found is, remember I told you there's Egyptologists, and they get their articles published, and if you're not an Egyptologist, it's like CoinMarketCap. Hex is not on that, even though its rating should have been. when it went on its moon run. You understand? It should have been listed and it wasn't. Same with Egypt. So these Egyptologists got so upset at this archaeologist, Robert Schoch, because he said one thing. He said, look at the Sphinx and look at the surrounding enclosure. And the Sphinx was a solid piece of rock and they carved around it. And there's an enclosure where they removed the stone and created walls. Those walls have wear and tear on them. And when he looked at it, he immediately said, that's water damage. That's water wear. The way that those stones look is from water. And they said, no, there was not heavy rains here in 4,000 years when this is supposed to be, because they believe that the big pyramid, they call it Khufu's pyramid, and Khufu was around 4,000 years ago, 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. So now you have this guy saying that there's water damage on the Sphinx enclosure, and it doesn't make sense to the timeline. So what they found is that the only time there were heavy rains was 12,000 years ago, where Egypt used to be a lush savanna and had heavy rains. It was not a desert. It used to be like California, like LA or something. You understand? It was a completely different environment. So that turned Egypt on its head. Then when you look at the Sphinx, you look at the front left paw of the Sphinx, and there's a cavern that goes underneath, and there's a chamber. And we have never been told, the general public has never been told what's inside the chamber. But what's prophesied by Hermes Trismegistus, and Hermes Trismegistus, big shout out to Thoth, is supposed to be the reincarnation of Thoth. So if y'all type in your computer, Hermes, Hermes Trismegistus, Trismeg, whatever, Trismegistus, you're going to find he's the reincarnation of Thoth, and he's an incredible knowledge holder. And he predicted that the Hall of Records will be there along with Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce is known as the sleeping prophet. And what he would do is, here's this dude, right? And he would sit on his couch and close his eyes, and he would go into a trance state. And that trance state, he would project and get these visions of different things. And to this day, he's the one who said, look under the front left paw or right paw, I can't remember. But he said the Hall of Records of all mankind, detailed from ancient cultures, is hidden there. So I've learned about all this. Then there was a new study done on the Sphinx. And if there's pictures, if you go online, you look this up, look by the right ear of the Sphinx. And if you look, there's the right ear of a Sphinx. There's a tiny opening that's a square enclosure. And there was a stone that was placed in it, but it was hollow behind the stone. And what they found through this side scan sonar is there's a hollow spot that goes through the ear of the Sphinx, down through the Sphinx into a cavern. And this is real stuff. I'm not making it up. You guys can go look at it. But it's actually there. And this stuff gets gate kept. And it goes even deeper. I learned there is something called the Romanian Sphinx. All right, y'all? Check this out. In Romania, there is a mountain, and they have a statue that is even more weather-worn than the Egyptian Sphinx, meaning it's older. It looks older. And there's a story that will blow your mind, okay? The story is that there's a mountain, and inside the mountain, there's a hollow chamber. And what they believe is that these tunnels go into the earth and connect whole countries underground. Did you hear that? They believe there's tunnels that connect different areas of the earth plane together underground, but they're ancient. It's like an ancient system where, like, you know how Elon wants to build like those, I forget what it's called, his company, but they bore tunnels underground.
Oh, the
that
Hyperloop?
Is what exactly. So it's the same thing. It's like, rather than being on the surface and having to go through all of civilization, down underneath the ground is what they found. And check this out. In Romania, they found this cavern. And this is like, you're not going to find this on mainstream. And I was so fascinated learning. What they said is that the powerful government, like, you know, the representatives of like the people, remember the dollar study, how on the island, like only a few percent, like 3 people out of 100 have a dollar. Those dudes, the dudes who own everything, found out about this and came and they demanded, we have to go and investigate this. This is our lineage. This is our people. This is our history. And they were fierce about it. And from the research, what I did is they had a machine that they would drop into stone, and it puts out like a laser, and that laser burns at a certain frequency and actually eviscerates the rock. So it's not a drill. They're not drilling material and then having a pile of the drill filings. It actually is like a heated laser, and it burns through the rock, and it leaves a melted wall in a circle, and that melted wall holds it in place. So what they're able to do is actually burn through solid stone in a matter of like minutes, not years and years of drilling. So as the story goes, they pulled out this technology and they bore a hole through the mountain into the chamber. And in the chamber, they found a giant cavern. And in this cavern, they found huge chairs, huge tables, like for people who are like way bigger than we are. It's kind of like the Nephilim you're talking about, these giants. And what they said is that they walked into a room and there was no one there. It was just like this table and chairs. They were all huge. And they put their hand over the table and something scanned them, and a holographic image came up. And the holograph was the DNA strand of a human being. And it showed the DNA of who they were as they put their hand over it. And it was like a new technology. And it's kind of like, I think there's a little bit more, but that's like the bottom line of the story. And it's just crazy how once you start learning about one thing, you start seeing the connections in other things. And it's just fascinating to me if you look at the technology of the way these temples were built. So there's all that stuff. Now look at the actual structures themselves. Yeah. Have you done much research into like how the temples are built around the world from ancient times?
I haven't done too much research into that, but I've looked at the different maybe I don't know if anomaly would be the word, different design things that kind of raise eyebrows. Like, why are the doors this massive? Yes, it could be for looks, but that would be very difficult, for people to handle. So I've looked into those type of things, which have been pretty fascinating. But you know what, to go back to the whole finding a chamber with giant chairs and a laser and everything, it kind of comes back to something that I like to talk about, like sci-fi kind of telling us things either through predictive programming or just ways of like slipping different pieces of real life, where life and sci-fi meet. But that reminds me of Prometheus and Alien, when they go into the ship and they find these massive chairs and this massive ship, for this alien race that's just absolutely huge, and they have no idea, what's going on. And then Prometheus being the prequel, this spoiler alert, being the precursors to humans that have these incredible holographic technology that tells them all different things about us. So it's interesting because you really look and you're like, okay, where's the knowledge of these writers coming from? Do they have a little more insight than we do? Is this their way of kind of trying to, to give us hints about things? Like sci-fi really starts to mimic reality a lot of, in these secret ways, I should say, not these obvious known ways. But and also right. Going back to the whole, the laser melting things away, I've heard that in Luxor, Egypt, there's evidence of melting on like the half finished stones that they were using for things. Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, that makes so much sense, being able to melt it. That's why everything's so perfect and precise.
There's stone walls. I'm like forgetting the name right now. There's stone walls in Bolivia, in Peru, in different places in South America, in Egypt. And they used modern technology and they scanned these stones. And guess what they found on the edging of all the stones where they're put together? And these are those giant megalithic blocks that people can't lift. And they're sealed so closely. There's no grout. Modern humans, we need some kind of grout to put in the middle of them to hold them together. These have nothing. It's just the raw stone put together. They found through the technology when they scanned these stones that the edges have been highly heated to incredible temperatures. So wouldn't that be incredible if the way that these pyramids and these walls were formed with giant stone blocks, irregular sized stone blocks, is that they had a technology to heat the edging of the stones. When they mashed them together, they formed a perfect seal. It makes so much sense that way, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's incredible. It's absolutely mind-blowing and funny also. You got to laugh about it when you look at like how like our structures, how terribly built they are. Like if you look at a new construction house, some of them how they're put together. Meanwhile, this is what they were doing with possibly fallen angel technology. Then it, that also brings us to another rabbit hole. No, but it's absolutely amazing. And you were mentioning temples. So this type of building, does it relate to the temples? Two? Okay.
Absolutely. So what you're going to find when you start researching temples is you're going to start seeing an ancient civilization that spanned the whole of the globe. Okay. And I might sound crazy because people are like, no, we didn't have modern seafair till like the 15 or 1600s when people started taking ships all over. And like, think about 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's the traditional story that not until the early, like late 1400s did Columbus cross and quote, discover America. I don't believe that personally. I don't believe any of that. What I believe is that there used to be an ancient, highly advanced culture that inhabited the whole of the earth plane. And there's something that is so fascinating. Like I don't know if you can tell, but this stuff lights me up. I love this stuff. I've been learning about it a long time, and I'm dusty on my facts. Like I haven't studied it because I got really into crypto, but I'm remembering a lot just talking about it. The Piri Reis map. Have any of you in the chat hit me up if you've heard of Piri Reis? Pirareis. He was a Turkish admiral in the Turkish army, and he had a passion for cartography. So his whole mission was creating maps, and he created a map called the Piri Reis map. And this map is insane. Okay, this is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before Antarctica was ever discovered. However, it shows Antarctica on the map. And I created slides like about this, and I put hours into this. I wish I could have shown it, but essentially you take Brazil and the contour of Brazil, the actual contour of the continent matches flawlessly in place on the Piri Reis map. Then you can see the curvature and you can see Antarctica. And the question to mainstream media and scholars who don't publish this stuff is, how is there a map of Antarctica before Antarctica was supposed to have been discovered? Because I believe the discovery of Antarctica was like very recent, and this is hundreds and hundreds of years before that time. So here's the crazy thing about the Piri Reis map. All right. The crazy thing is that when you look at the shape of Antarctica right now, the Piri Reis map doesn't match at all. There's no match. It's like, okay, that dude could have just made it up, right? He looks like a fraud. However, here's the kicker. When you do side scan sonar and you ping through 1 mile sheet of ice, guess what you find? You find land. And guess what the actual United States Air Force intelligence found? You can look this up, y'all. The United States Air Force was sent the Piri Reis map. And they said, by a scholar from Massachusetts University, and they said, I'm finding anomalous facts. Can you please confirm this? So they wrote it back. You can find this online. And they said, what they found is that the Piri Reis map shows the contour of Antarctica underneath the ice flawlessly.
Sure.
It's a map of Antarctica of what's underneath a mile of snow. And it was, when you do the research on the Piri Reis map, you realize he used over 400 source maps from previous explorers and cartographers. So he actually took all the maps that he could find in the whole world and he created his map and he sailed and did his confirmations. But it's a conglomeration of all the past maps that other people have had. And you have to ask yourself, how the hell can these ancient dudes who are supposed to be like evolving from apes, like, how could they have knowledge of what's buried 1 mile underneath the ice? The only way that's possible is with modern technology. So you have to think, well, what does that mean? And the conclusion that it naturally draws is that, hey, y'all, there was an ancient race of advanced civilization, and it was a global society. Now, to take Antarctica a step further, you have to look at the actual continent of Pangaea. You guys ever heard of Pangaea in school? It's all of the continents in the United States mashed together. And what they say is over time, they're slowly moving apart. So the way that they prove this is there's some stone like in Argentina that's all the way out in like South America or some other place across a whole ocean. And it's the exact striations of stone that match up. And they can show how, whoa, at one point, this used to be matched up like perfectly. And that kind of solidifies the Pangaea theory that everything was a big mass and it started spreading apart slowly. Now you look at Antarctica. If you look at the shape of the globe, you can almost see how things kind of like were one and then broke apart and moved away. Antarctica, here's the theory. The theory is that, remember Egypt, how we were talking about Egypt and we were saying like the savanna wasn't always a desert.
Yeah.
It used to be or the desert wasn't always like that. It used to be a lush savanna. And a savanna is like full of rain and green. Everything's green. There's palm trees. It's lush. There's water everywhere. It's a completely different environment. Antarctica, from what I have understood, is that it used to be land. And as it moved away, we had something called a pole shift. Have you ever heard about the pole shift, the Earth's magnetic field? You ever heard of that?
Pole reversal, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
sorry, kind of froze.
The pole reversal is the Earth's Okay. Are we back?
Yeah. We're back. We're back now. I don't know.
Okay.
Is that whose internet is that? Mine looks all right. Okay. Is it your internet?
So no, I think it's okay. We'll just keep going. I can
You're
hear
good.
you now.
Okay. Yeah. Now it's settled. Okay.
Yeah. So to understand. Yeah, to understand Antarctica, you have to understand pole shifts. And modern researchers found this cliff, and it's this hundreds of foot straight up cliff. And they were able to use magnetic technology. And what they found is that the magnetism of different layers changes. So at certain points on this cliff, the Earth's magnetic field is going one way, and then they find at a different layer, it flips. And to their research, they found 3 flips from what I remember. And those 3 pole reversals, they're looking at where we are now on the cliff, and they're like, hey, like, we don't know why it hasn't happened yet. Like, given this parameter of every X amount of years, the pole flips, and then it's here, and then it takes this much time, and then it's here. They're not sure why it hasn't happened yet. And the way that you can tell is by the North Pole. So the North Pole is not actually the top of the planet. There's that point on the map, but there's something called the magnetic North Pole, and that's what your compass reads. So when you use a compass, your compass is actually getting its reading from the magnetic North Pole. And what they're saying is that dipole can flip. Now, what happens when the magnetic pole flips and it changes? What they're saying is that the climate changes with it. So all these people who are out there saying global warming is a thing, and we have to, the humans are ruining the planet through global warming. I have researched it's actually a magnetic flip on a planetary scale. And this caused me to research other planets. And there's another planet, I believe it's Neptune. And if you look at Neptune, all of the other planets along with Earth are changing temperature and they're changing color. Like Neptune has been
Oh,
changing
I've
from
never
blue to
heard that.
green. Yes,
Oh, wow.
look into it, y'all. Will blow your mind once you start learning this. And if you start thinking about, all right, there's other planets that the whole of the planet is being affected, and there's not people there with gasoline cars and carbon emissions changing it. It's the evolutionary nature of whatever the physical plane we're living in is.
Mhm.
So you have to think about that dipole shift. And now imagine Antarctica with the Piri Reis map, how they have it perfectly outlined a mile below the ice. That means someone actually mapped it out when there was no ice. And then a mile of ice is on top of it now. So when you start learning about all this stuff, it's so fascinating. I love learning about this stuff.
Oh yeah, it's so incredible. And then going back to, the anthropogenic climate change that they all try to claim. You had spoken about that archaeologist who she was told not to publish her findings, and then she got kicked out of the community. It's the same thing with
Yeah.
climate scientists. When they try to point this thing out, or that it's just cyclical in general, even in our recorded recent history, like you can go back 500 years and see major weather issues too, they get thrown out too. So there's this constant narrative where it's not just pushed. Everybody likes to blame the media. It's not just the media. It's all our institutions are constantly pushing a certain narrative. So yeah, it's the same exact thing with climate, because 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, they weren't putting out enough pollution to change anything. Yet they were having this extreme cold, extreme heat. Their climate was a little different than it is now, but nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to account for what's going on there. And when you talk about the pole reversals, in order for the poles to reverse, our entire magnetic field has to get weak. And our magnetic field is there to protect us. So if you think about Earth with a weak magnetic field, that's possibly cataclysmic, major events happening, but no, but it couldn't be that. No, even though we're long overdue, there's no way. It's got, what, everybody needs to drive a Tesla. There's the answer. Oh, we lost Lit. All right. There we go. Oh, a little buffering, a little how's it going there? Can you see and hear me now? I guess we got a little delay. Uh-oh. Oh, it was getting so interesting. Somebody not want us talking about. Okay, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, I think I got rugged, but I'm back.
Okay, there we go. I was like, okay, somebody not want us talking about climate?
Yeah, exactly. We're getting a little hectic, Ash.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I'm like, talking about social credit. It's like, well, on the outside, I kind of just seem like, okay, the girl who's going to do the right thing and pay for her parking at the meter or whatever. But here I am on the internet saying all the things that they don't like. So my social credit score would be pretty darn low. Yeah.
I actually I've talked to really smart people about my YouTube channel. And when I started YouTube, I was like the first Pulse Chain channel, and I was having on the regular, like this is a regular occurrence, people calling me. If I see some channel OGs here for me, but people were telling me, Lit, I've been unsubscribed from your channel. I'm so pissed off. I missed your video. My like is gone. I had to re-like your video. My comment is deleted. I can't find my comment. So if you go to my old videos, you can see me saying, hey, check if you're subscribed. So many people wrote me and said YouTube unsubscribed them. So many people told me I had to re-like your video. It's not sticking. So many people told me my comment will not stick. I put the comment, it's there. I refresh the page, it's gone. And I started wondering, why, what's happening? And I wondered if all of the research I've done is affecting my ability to grow as an influencer now. Because if you study the history of the internet, what you're going to find, sorry, that's my dog.
It's all right.
What you're going to find is he's so rad. What you're going to find is the introduction, the genesis of the actual internet comes from CERN,
Yes.
CERN. Look it up, y'all. I don't look, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've done this research and I'm telling y'all, CERN created the internet. And when you look and you understand how they made it, they created IP addresses. They created a computer peer-to-peer where information was sent in a loop, and that loop contained a database from the very inception of the internet. And if you research the beginning of the internet, what you're going to find is that everything you've ever done on a computer at the highest level, the most conspiratorial level, is able to be put in a file, okay? Through your IP address, through the actual technology of the way that those images and data is transferred from your computer and to your computer. At the highest level, there's a record of every search you've ever done, okay? Now, drink that in and think about a social score. Think about trying to become an influencer when you've done all this ancient research into stuff like I'm talking about and all these taboo topics. And I've often wondered if I was like a cookie cutter white bread, like never worried about it, just go along with the sheeple, and I never questioned anything, and I just watched my movie and I ate my fast food and I just didn't open my eyes to the larger reality of what's going on, I've often wondered how big my YouTube channel would be if I didn't trigger any red flags. Because if you think about the way the social engineering system that's happening is being created, they don't want outliers who think for themselves. That's not what they want.
Dangerous.
They want people who agree with the mainstream media. These independent researchers are getting destroyed one by one. Their YouTube channels are getting taken out. And if you look up the YouTube algorithm, how it has changed. When I used to research stuff in like 2010, 2012, the internet was so different. Hit me in these comments. Tell me if you guys remember researching stuff 10 years ago. How different was the Google algorithm? You could find all sides of a topic. When you type something in, you could find conspiracies. You could find wacky articles. Then you could find mainstream articles. Now, what they've done is Google has re-engineered the algorithm. And what the CEO of Google said a couple years ago is he said, when you type in a search term and the Google algorithm shows you multiple sources, that's wrong. We want all one answer to be there. It should be one answer. And that is scary. Okay, I'm botching the quote, but that is scary because it's exactly what I'm talking about with being an influencer, being in the crypto hex community that's gatekept, learning about high strangeness and realizing all this stuff. It's all connected to human individuals breaking out of the matrix. Okay. And breaking out of the matrix, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, is essentially becoming aware of your own consciousness and not needing to go in the socially engineered system like a sheep that does not think for itself. And that goes back to my reference that my Dzogchen teacher taught me about watching The Hiker. You have to find the hiker, and the hiker is the mind. You have to catch the hiker. And what it is it's catching your mind. And if you're able to catch your mind, you're able to actually break yourself out of the matrix that rules us. And when you look at spirituality, at the highest levels of spirituality, what you actually find is you find individual reality portals. Okay? That's what I've come to understand. Every single person in the chat, you, me, we're all processing our own reality tunnel. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I have heard something similar.
What it is it happens in your mind. Okay. It happens in the physical brain. So when you see, there's actually no light that ever goes inside your brain. Okay. Think about it, y'all. My brain and your brain is encased with skull and bone and tissue. It's encased, okay? However, we see light. When we look around, you see light. How do you see light if light never goes inside your brain? So what they found is that light passes through the eyes and it goes back through the optic nerve and it hits this mirror mechanism where it actually like mirrors it through your brain. I forget exactly what that thing's called right now, but I used to know it really well, but it flips it. And what happens is we're able to see a reality with light and sound. Our physical senses, our ears have little temporal bones that vibrate to the sound, and we're able to hear the vibrations and transfer. If you look at essential oils are incredible because it's a scent. And when you smell something, your brain chemistry changes. So I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but I went to school and I got a degree in essential oils like 10 years ago, like a long time ago. I told you
Oh,
I'm a
wow.
lifetime learner. I'm always learning. And something I learned about essential oils is incredible. Essential oils work through your nasal cavity into your hypothalamus. Okay. Oh, I think we got rugged. I think Ashley got rugged, y'all. We're getting too hectic.
All right, I'm back. Okay.
You got rugged. We're getting too hectic.
Yeah, are we? But I might have just touched my touchpad the wrong way, but I'm always touching it to do the comments, but my computer decided this time that it meant that I wanted to leave. I guess, yeah, exactly. Somebody not happy. But I'm sorry. Please continue onward.
I forgot what I was saying. What hit
about
me
the
in the chat? What was I just
hypothalamus
talking
and
about?
the essential oils.
Okay. So yeah, we're breaking down reality and we're breaking down physical senses and we're talking about essential oils. Now, essential oils are proven to change your neurochemistry. So how does a freaking plant oil that you put under your nose change your neurochemistry? Here's how, y'all. There are two nerves that come out of your brain and touch the open air. And there's only two of them in the whole body. Your entire body is this incredible masterpiece of incredible technology. And only two nerves expose themselves to the open air, and it's in your nose. And the origin of those nerves is in the hypothalamus. And these nerves come out, and what they do is they translate a scent into a magnetic impulse, okay? An electromagnetic impulse. So essential oil is an oil that has a smell, and that smell, once it hits those nerves in your nose, connects to your hypothalamus, and it changes the electromagnetic impulse. So your mind is actually changed. And the way that this relates to reality is we have these physical senses, and our physical senses are telling us that this is reality. But when you go to the deepest part of spirituality, you actually find we're in our own reality tunnels. We have a spirit inhabiting a body, and the body has all these sensory perception mechanisms that tells us one thing or pushes us another. But deep down, we're this energy inside a body. And energy can never be created nor destroyed if you study energy. So when someone dies, when Mama Awesome died, it was really hard for me. But I have been telling myself, you know what? Just her body died. Her energy, that energy that inhabited the form, is still out there. And maybe it inhabits a new form and reincarnation is real. Maybe it goes down into the base of all. But whatever it is, there's energy inside of bodies. And if you look up near-death experiences and research that, you'll find so many stories where people explain so many details. I had a fire roasted back in my past. She's like my first love. And she died in a car accident and was brought back to life. And she was dead for like a period of time. All right.
Wow.
And I asked her, what did you learn? What did you learn from dying and coming back? And you know what she told me? It was incredible. She told me, this world is so easy. This life is so easy. And I was like, what do you mean? Like you died, you go away, you come back to life, clinically brought back to life, and you tell me this world is so easy. Well, why is there so much struggle? What do you mean it's easy? And she further expounded that when she died, she felt herself leave her body, and she was looking down on the earth plane. She was looking down at herself. She saw all the people in her life, all the things in her life. And what she realized is that, oh my God, I want to go back. I want another chance. I want to be back in that body, and I want to start aligning one thought after another in the same direction. I don't want to let my mind go from here and then bounce off to there and then bounce off to there and lose focus. I just want to calmly put one thought in one direction and another one, and step by step, thought by thought, begin building and generating who she wants to be in this earth. And that's what she meant. Earth is so easy, but people forget. People forget all you have to do is take your mind one step at a time.
Yeah. But it comes back to also what you were saying, the information overload too, that keeps us not at peace. Part of that is so that we overcomplicate our lives. We don't focus on one step after another. And when we don't focus on one step after another, we don't accomplish anything. And we just basically become just these, like, I don't know, these meat bags that are just here to serve and make money for the corporation, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the head honchos. But I just want to hop over to Brian's question a moment. Have you heard or seen any Tom Campbell?
I've never heard of Tom Campbell. Who is that?
I'm not sure. I've never heard of him either. Though.
Hit us in the chat. Who is Tom Campbell, Brian?
Yes, please let us know. Okay, we got a lot of near-death experience talk in the in the chat here.
Post it. Let's talk about it.
See. Or just general chat. I don't see any specifics, but it says Torin has near-death experience stories because he was dead. Oh, and so does Brian. Wow, so they're kind of like more common than I expected. I felt like that was always like those kind of one of those rare things. But I didn't know that I knew people with those experiences.
Here, can you give me 1 second? Go post some chat. I need to jump out, and I'll be right back in like 1 minute.
Sure, yeah.
I'm having something at home I need to deal with. Yeah, but I'm just gonna leave, and I'm gonna be right back in 1 minute. So just hang out.
Yeah, no problem.
Is that okay?
We'll be here.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. I'm just catching up on the chat here. There's a lot of okay. So we're gonna save the near-death experiences for when Lit gets back. But let me just go. So Kemet was the original name for Egypt, which is interesting because that just opens up a whole other bag of worms for Egypt's history. And Aquabalon was the original name for Africa. Oh, that's interesting because I'm a little more familiar with the Egyptian history, but Africa as a whole, the continent, I didn't know that was the original name. And let me tell you, man, Africa is one of those things that fascinate me, like the secrets of Africa and the tech of Africa and what's going on in Ethiopia. Wow, that is one incredible continent. Maddie, thanks for being here. I hope you're doing well, and we're all thinking of you and wishing you a speedy and easy. Is that terrible to say? An easy recovery? No, we want you to have an easy recovery. We know it might not be, but I hope it is. So I hope you're taking it easy. Brian says, okay, so I will share that. Let me star that to come back to it. Let me see. Near-death experience radio. So there's actually people's stories about it. I didn't even know. Wow, there's so much talk about that. Crypto Journeyman has some eucalyptus oil in your diffuser right now. Let me tell you, man, everybody likes to knock essential oils, but as we were just talking about it, there is quite a lot. Oh, there you are, Lit. There's quite a lot that goes into it, scientifically. And I mean, people the thing is, people like legit have, you know, different things, good things happen to them. Either they're healed, they have positive things, whatever they're trying to accomplish within essential oil, apparently it works. So there's something to it, even if, you know, yes, there is a science to explain it, but even if we can't fully understand it, you know, can't knock it if it works. I love thieves oil for its antibacterial
Yeah,
properties.
good for you. Hey, you got some OGs in here. What's up, Maddie? Much love to you, bro. I just wanted to say that we're really happy that you're okay, and I'm really glad you're okay, bro. Car accidents are no joke, and thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do, brother.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that picture, man, that was posted. Oof, that was scary. And thank you for sharing it with us. I mean, just a reminder, you know, to everybody, like cars are a scary, dangerous piece of equipment, man. You know, and you know, and even if you are doing everything right, you never know what somebody else is doing. You know, so always want to stay vigilant, be in our seatbelts. And my thing is, watch out for everyone else because you cannot trust anyone else. And if you notice, people seem less capable of driving than they used to. I don't know if these past 2 years did something, but I feel like nobody can drive anymore, and it makes me insane. So yeah, so let's look at our near-death experience chat. So let me just pull this back up. Oh, because it's moving quickly, this chat now. So Torin had said that he had to be kept awake, held in your body for 2 days to stay here. Wow.
Wow.
Okay, there's a lot going on in that statement. Torin, maybe you want to pop on sometime and talk about this because I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. That's and
I
somebody mentioned near death radio. Also, I didn't know that was a thing. Have you ever listened to that, Lit?
I've never heard of that. I would absolutely love to though, because you know, at these higher levels of spiritual essence that we strive for, what that's what you find. You find these breakthroughs in a near death experience that might take entire lifetimes of spiritual practice, and you get it, boom, you get the download. So I absolutely love near death experiences. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and no, and those people that do come back from it, like you said, you know, it's a download. It's something completely different. There is nobody that comes back from that the same person. That's you know, like I said, I don't know that much about it. I don't know that many people who have had that happen. Well, apparently I know more than I realized, but yeah, but there's nobody that comes back the same jerk they were before, right? So it's pretty. Maybe we should have a show about it. I'm sorry I can't speak more eloquently about it because, like I said, this is something I'm not entirely familiar with. So I'm learning right now as we're speaking about it and as I'm reading this chat. Torrin said, I've had a couple of accidents I shouldn't have walked away from and a couple more rollovers that didn't include the other 2 NDEs. Oh, and head injuries too, man. Oh, that's scary. And 2
Torin, I
new
know.
experiences. So, you
I
know,
know.
apparently you're here for a reason on this earth, you know, so someone doesn't want you to leave yet. Wow. So this is pretty incredible. Yes, High Strangeness NDE show would be awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. Sounds like we can have a whole panel here based on who's in the chat and what everybody's talking about here. So, I'm sorry, Lit, if you want to continue where you were going before, or is this what we were, I guess this was where we were kind of going. This
Yeah,
was where we were at. I'm sorry, I'm
we're
losing
we're
what
just
I'm
off the
saying.
cuff. We don't
Yeah.
really have a plan. I did have some slides that I couldn't show, but it's all good.
Yeah, no, but definitely save them for something in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether you start your own because I mean you know a lot about this and you could definitely, you know, your content knowledge is pretty wide. Have you ever thought about like starting a TikTok or even just putting it in bite-sized chunks for people?
So I won't do a TikTok,
Mhm.
but it's because I'm one of those dudes that researches terms. Not all the time. Sometimes like I just do it. Like I have a Google account, but I didn't do it until my YouTube channel. Like I would
Mhm.
not get a Google account because when you learn about this stuff, you start like wanting to protect yourself. And
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if you even can anymore, to be honest. I don't know if you can be on the internet and have your autonomy still. I'm not sure. And if you look at crypto regulations, if you look at our current situation with FTX,
Mm.
you guys, like, I see the connections, all right? And
Yeah.
there's autonomy is like not real. They're trying to do this to DeFi. They're trying to shut down DeFi because it allows us to transact autonomously away from centralized networks that regulate our transactions. And that's not what they want. They want their hand in the pie, and they don't want us making our little fun little tribes on DeFi and earning money to be able to live life and do what we want. It's just it's kind of a bummer, but it's kind of highlighted by everything we've talked about. Like when you research enough, you realize there's gatekeeping all over.
Oh yeah.
And I think, like, in all the years of research I've done, I think it kind of leads to one foundation point. And as a power coach for 20 years, I try to help people with motivation and power. And power is not something that people have to go find. It's something that exists within them already, but they cover over it. So all these human individuals are living their life. And if you imagine, like, this innocent child at one point was a clear vessel, and this body is like your vessel. So at one point, your mind came into this vessel and you were just clear. But what happens is our environment starts imprinting different experiences on us. And those imprints are like colors. So this clear sphere starts getting strokes of color on it. And as we get older, as we develop, as our mind ages and our neurosynaptic connections start forming, and they give us our personality based off the environmental factors that we've lived under, that shapes who we are and how we operate. And what happens is we end up becoming individuals. And some people go with the mainstream and they don't worry about it. But some people, like me, I've always been carving my own path my whole life, based off from being raised the way I was to who I am now. I just carve my own path, and I think for myself. And when I'm looking at the FTX situation, it is so simply put, this is a planned inside job that was created with regulations, and then they put a centralized exchange, and they took a token and they distributed it everywhere, and there's firms involved, and these firms are going to become insolvent once all their funds get tanked in it. And you're going to see the end result is, quote, order out of chaos. If y'all know what I'm talking about, if you know, you know. But you never let a catastrophe go to waste when you look at the ways these regimes run things. So they create a problem, there's a reaction, and then there's a solution. It's called problem, reaction, solution. And the problem, right, is DeFi. The reaction is, oh my God, look, FTX collapsed. They've taken billions of dollars from people. And that part's real, okay? Real human beings have had their life savings destroyed. Like, this is horrifying, okay? From a coach, I'm so sorry for anyone who's lost any funds in FTX. However, there's a solution at the end, and the solution is to regulate DeFi. So if you sit back and you go problem, reaction, solution, and you break it down, you can see how, if you had an agenda to regulate DeFi, how would you do it? Every time they try to regulate it, we all come out the woodwork and we all yell and scream and we vote and we freak out, and they have to pull back their regulations. Yeah. However, once FTX has melted down, right away, regulators are now saying, we're moving forward with FTX's SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried. We're moving forward with his regulation plan. And his regulation plan is social credit score on the blockchain. It is freezing transactions for bad behavior. So when I see all this stuff happening, and this is high strangeness. High strangeness is looking at crypto, realizing there's centralized entities that want to take DeFi away and change it so that they have to approve every transaction. And guess what? If they don't like what you do online, which we know is trackable, we know your IP address can ping back every web page you've ever been on. And if you don't believe me, go read these terms of service. Your internet provider has every single web page you've ever looked at, okay? and they can analyze that and stick it into a credit score based off taboo topics. And if you've done it, your score goes down. And if you do certain things they don't like, and now you're on blockchain and you're sending transmissions, they can block your transaction at a validator level. Do you understand that? The way blockchain works, a transaction gets sent and it goes to a validator, and that validator takes that and sends it into the blockchain. And one by one on bottom, one on top. It's called block height. So they start building the blockchain height up and up. And you cannot add blocks to the blockchain without a validator of some kind. So what SBF says in his regulation proposal is that at the validator level, they're going to stop the transaction if you have bad behavior. So that's why everyone is so pissed off about this whole thing. And when I look at the current situation, this is exactly how I see it. It seems like a planned attack with the end goal to be fully regulating DeFi, and you can backtrack it. If you think about how are they going to regulate DeFi, there has to be some false flag event that triggers everyone into a tizzy, and they publicize it everywhere, and then they come with the regulation they wanted. Like, in my opinion, I think it's just that simple.
Oh, no, it's, I mean, it definitely, when you look at the whole FTX situation, it's so clear that there's so much more to the story going on, but like at every angle. And the fact that it doesn't have a ton of media coverage, even though this is like bigger than the Bernie Madoff scandal. This is massive. It's very telling. And then when you start saying that, don't let a good crisis go to waste, it's a false flag. Of course, that's how they do, right? And that's how they do everything. It only makes sense. It's interesting because I was looking at it from some other angles, but it didn't hit me. Until you just said the false flag thing. I'm like, 100%. There's and especially like you look at where their political donations were, like
100 million to the Democratic Party.
Oh my gosh! And they were planning to have 1 billion in donations. They wanted 1 billion by 2024. So it's very clear, and they had like lobbyists, and like his relatives are like in the WEF and are in different political organizations. I'm like, this is like a total setup. This is looks like the fakest thing ever. Like, you see how fake FTX was. And it's funny because I remember being on it back in 2021, trying it once, and I'm like, I just don't like this, and I got right off of it. Then I'm like, okay, was it just good?
I wonder if it was your energy. Like, I wonder if your energy was more sensitive and your consciousness was a little higher and it didn't feel comfortable there. You ever thought about that? That's some Mama Awesome stuff for you.
It made me wonder. I'm like, what drove me away from there? I mean, was it a bad feeling at the time? It was, I was just like, I don't know. I just didn't like the way it was run. I wasn't too into it. I was just like, meh. It's meh. Why are people acting like it's better? So I pulled whatever minimal I had off there and never went back to it again. And I am so glad that I stayed away. Yeah.
Good for you.
That was, I think I used it to experiment with, what was it, Solana? So that's like double stupid, FTX and Solana. But I learned my lesson.
That's awesome. You got Dingo Wolf in the chat. That's my boy.
Dingo Wolf.
Dingo is so rad. You need to follow him on Twitter. He's such an awesome dude. I came to Dingo. I was like all stressed out, and like I'm a coach, so like you never think about the coach who's helping you like needing help. But dude, I'm human. Sometimes I need advice. I need to bounce things off people. And I came to my boy Dingo, and I was like, "Yo, this is coming up." And he talked to me. We had a little 5-minute talk, and it was like, I just felt so good after talking to him that, if you ever need anything, reach out to him. He's a really good dude.
Oh, hi, Dingo. Yeah, I'm trying to think if we follow each other on Twitter or not. I will check that out right after this. But like, gosh, I'm so glad you touched on FTX, because I definitely have been thinking about that all day.
Have you been keeping up to date? There's Mario Narfall. He is incredible. All right. I asked him to be on my show like weeks before all this about
Oh,
regulations.
wow.
And they wrote me back and they're like, I'm sorry, he's busy building his own show. And
Mm,
it shows. Did you guys know he
mm.
had Elon Musk last night on the show? Elon tweeted, there's a Twitter space live talking about the FTX meltdown. And I was sitting there listening, going, oh my God, that's us. And then on the chat, they go, he's in the chat. Elon's in our Twitter chat right now talking about the FTX meltdown of crypto. And sure enough, it was Elon. He ended up, they called him out. Elon, if you're in the chat, come and talk. And he jumped on and he actually got as a co-host and started talking. And guess what happened? He got rugged. His audio wouldn't go through.
Oh, wow.
So there's two ways to think about it.
Yeah.
There are 60,000 people in the room. And the first way is that they're testing the limits of Twitter, having 60,000 people in a room. Can the actual technology hold up that much data and interaction between users? Then there's the other one where I kind of think of like, I don't know what's true or not. I don't really have an opinion. I just know that Elon Musk went on Joe Rogan and he smoked the fire. All right. He smoked some crap and he actually got high on the show. And he got a text from the big dogs. And they told him, what are you doing? Like, you have government contracts and NDAs that you cannot be stoned on a show. And you can see it in his face. He like checks his phone and he's like, ugh, and he gets all paranoid. And at that point, you can see how he had to stop and slow down what he was saying.
He
You
reined it in.
understand? So part of me is like, can Elon, someone that big, can he freely speak about everything he thinks? And it's like these influencers, their gatekeeping is real. I think we've covered that enough. But part of me is like really watching this case, and if you reverse engineer the regulatory standpoint, it's like clockwork. And I just want to tell y'all, this is not the end. This is not the end. This is going to trigger a lot more things in crypto. I feel like we're 100% going to have a dark winter with crypto, and I think it will recover, but I think we're going to definitely have fallout from all this.
Oh yeah. No, I was discussing this with my parents, and my dad was questioning that. He's like, what is the fallout going to be for the rest of crypto? And I think, I agree. I think because of how great it was, in 2020, 2021, there's a lot of people who maybe they're not completely into it, but they were kind of speculating, and I think it's going to shake a lot of them out. It's going to shake out those weaker hands that don't completely understand it, that don't completely see the value in it. And I think that will affect prices. But the thing is, when you shake out weaker hands, then I don't know the term. What's the term for the stronger hands? But then the people who are
diamond
really
hands.
in it, the what?
Diamond hands.
Diamond hands. Yeah, the people who really understand it, it's going to give us a chance to kind of solidify and regroup. And it gives it a chance, I think, to come back even better without those weak hands just messing everything up. Yeah. So
look
it's like
at Insidious. Insidious put a comment, put it up there. It's insightful. It's pretty funny. It's just a clean.
Yeah, just shake it out, like shaking out the rug outside. So,
the thing I've learned is that sometimes things are as simple as that. Like there's a goal, and you have to reverse engineer it with your mind, and then you end up seeing ahead of policies and ahead of technologies that come into play. It's just, that's how it works. Try to reverse engineer it.
Yeah. But you know what? We're going to get fought at every single turn. I mean, we've already seen that, but even so now. And, because I think it bears repeating the fact that it has the potential to change so much in the world and change so many lives. And the fact that they want us as their I don't want to say slaves, but like they're slaves. They want us as those good citizens, those good workers. And then if we have money, that's a problem for the powers that be. So that just shows to me how powerful crypto is, that it gives us that opportunity. So it must really be legit for them to be fighting this hard against it. And for the WEF to be teaming up with certain forces in it. That's why I love what Richard Hart does. The fact that Pulse and everything on it, and even eventually when he does its wallet, is going to exist outside of WEF control. Like, that is just like the coolest thing for me. I think that's, that's mind blowing.
I really hope we get to that point. I've been here a long time, and that's actually a really interesting quote. You want to read that?
Yeah, Elon. Yeah, I was just reading that now. Elon is not a savior. He is their false prophet pretending to save you. The only thing he's building for humanity is an express lane to the meat grinder. I agree with this statement. What do you?
So when he bought Twitter, I was supremely disappointed to know that he's enforcing this blue check thing, because you're going to have to put a credit card, which is a form of KYC, and KYCs know your customer. So once they know who you are and you've confirmed your account with your little check and your payments, they can now take all your tweets and they can put it into the social credit score. So everything you've now tweeted, everything you've searched on the internet, everything that you've said, and the voice technology exists to turn speech into words. Go to a Twitter space and watch. It's not always right, but most of the words are written down. So now there's manuscripts. Wow. There's all the data that shows what type of person you are online. And then you add that up to what you buy in stores, what kind of behaviors you have. There's geographic tagging on your phone. They know what places you go. They know how often. They can create a chart with probability. How probable is someone to go to this point or that point? And there's so much data that's out there. I definitely was kind of bummed out when Elon is changing the algorithm. And what he's doing is, if you don't buy the check mark, okay? If you don't KYC yourself and buy the check mark and get yourself into the system, they bury your tweet. And he's live on film saying you're going to have to scroll a long time to find uncheckmarked users. So I am a little crypto influencer, right? Just doing my thing, trying to pump these Richard Hart projects, all stoked on them because I believe in them. I believe in these projects and I like talking about them. And it's not financial advice. I just really am passionate about it. And then I found there's a bunch of people in the chat who are passionate about it. There's a bunch of people in the community who love it. And when Richard Hart starts cutting through stuff and just leaving bodies behind him from people who were trying to debate him, you kind of feel like, whoa, this guy knows his stuff. And he's been acting like a lot different lately. And I'm like, as a coach, I'm kind of like, I don't care for all that stuff. But I care about is that he's a cypherpunk. And he's one of the last remaining guys who wants DeFi. And that's what I really like about the dude. So I really hope that Twitter doesn't, I mean, it's already happening. You guys go tweet out stuff. And if you don't have a check mark, tell me your level of engagement. See if it's dropped. Because the way it's working is first page of Google gets 99% of the results. Okay? Barely anyone goes on the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh pages. People don't do that. So what's going to happen to your tweet if they put you on page 7 of Google? Before, everyone was put on page 1, first result, and it would scroll down. So Elon changed the algorithm, and
yeah, oh no, definitely. No, I
love Bobby Hexelrod. Much love, bro.
Hey, Bobby. Yeah, no, and I had noticed because like I kept like for this show, I kept having to retweet it, which I've never had to do before. I would do a quote tweet with something about it, whenever I promote High Strangeness. But I kept tweeting it and retweeting it, and maybe one like, no likes. And, yep. I'm not saying that I usually get a massive amount of likes, but I know how many likes I usually get. But I'm like, this is weird. Why do I have to keep retweeting it in order to get engagement. And apparently that's it, because I never paid for the blue check mark.
That's what it is.
It's and that's pretty, it's disturbing. Now because it's fun. It sounds dumb that I didn't look at it this way, because I guess I figured that the internet, Twitter already knows who I am, but I didn't realize that I was then giving them another layer that basically, if I were to pay, becomes like a social credit score. I'm like, oh,
Totally.
because I'm so used to different apps and everything. Because again, it's like they prime you for this, so that by the time Twitter's asking for money, it's totally normal. It's normal for you.
I'm gonna blow your mind right now if you don't know this. All right. Same with the chat, y'all. Have you guys heard of TikTok's terms and policies? And what is by the way, that's an incredible comment. That's exactly right. It's 100% right. It's the same in hex as all the stuff we're talking about. But I want to talk to you guys about the algorithm of Twitter. I want to talk to you guys about the algorithm of TikTok. Okay. TikTok is a Chinese organization. Okay. Chinese is a communist country. China has facial recognition at every corner. Okay. They have cameras at every single corner in their cities, and they literally can find someone. Okay. I forget the name of the show, but it was this documentary. And they went to China and they said, how long would it take for you to find someone, a random person in the whole of your country? And China is massive, y'all. Massive. How long would it take to find someone in one of your cities if you wanted to find them? And guess what? The Chinese authorities took a photo and they put it in their system, and they had the AI scan it, and they put it into their system, and they scanned all of the cameras that are connected to the government communist system. Guess how long it took them to find this person, y'all? Hit me in the chat. Tell me how long you think it took to find the dude that they showed a random picture to.
I'm afraid to hear this answer.
Are you ready? 8 minutes.
Gosh, talk about dystopian.
8
and it's insane because all the people here have you noticed all these people that are kissing China's butt and just want to talk about how amazing China is and how fantastic? I'm like, you know what?
I don't want to shit talk China for my algorithm and everything.
It's just my algorithm. It just hit me.
But I'm just I was like, you better stop this there. But I just want to highlight it's a communist country with these laws. So let's not get too hectic there. But yeah, so he knew. You must have seen that. So holy shit, he guessed right.
Yeah.
So 8 minutes, China. But the point of telling you that is for TikTok, okay? So you get an idea of how TikTok works. Okay, y'all. Guess what TikTok says you agree to. If you have a TikTok, you have already agreed to this. Are you guys ready? Drum roll.
Oh, gosh.
They put in TikTok, if you agree to their terms of service, every single computer that you have that's connected to your account, so your TikTok has an account, they said even devices that aren't that device that you've downloaded TikTok, they can gain digital access to, and they can read all of your files. They can read everything you post. Now, why is that scary? That's scary because what if you're write patents? What if you're in emerging technology? What if you're a dev and you have TikTok and you're writing your project game theory to your other person, and it's only 2 partners, and you're sharing information, and you have TikTok downloaded on your phone? That means they can read every single word. And if they like something, they can create it before you. You understand? They can front run your technological innovation all without you knowing it, because you put it on the internet through your device. And guess what? You agreed to that in the terms of service. So unless they've changed it, that's what's on there. And it's pretty fascinating. Joe Rogan, if you guys type in Google Joe Rogan TikTok terms of service, he covers this and you can listen to it.
And like, put aside how people feel about Trump, it's really interesting that he had tried to make the move to ban TikTok. and people lost their minds over it, I guess, because TikTok is so addicting. But like, and for good cause, right? Like he it made hearing all this, it completely makes sense, the fact that he would do that. But it's also so incredible when you think about the reaction. It's like, you know what, this is made to be like a drug, because it wasn't people that are off TikTok that were advocating for freedom of speech or freedom of apps or whatever. No, it was the addicted TikTok users who freaked out over that. And I guess that's all part of the design. It's all intentional. Yeah, and it's built right into it. It's like Doritos, right? It's just it's made, yeah, it's made to have addictive properties. Have we lost you again? Think we froze on your smile. It's a good frozen picture. But yeah, TikTok is what a clock does, not an app. you know, and and I am on TikTok, and I knew it wasn't ideal, but it makes me wonder if that was, yeah, a bad idea, and what I've opened myself up to. Because sometimes I'll justify it, and I'll be like, well, my information is already out there, and anybody can get to it. Basically, the governments can do whatever they want, even if they say they won't. So sometimes I just go, whatever. But no, that's on a whole other level. If there's still, if that's still allowed to happen. I mean, and
Yeah,
back to
what?
the whole thing about our
Yeah,
government
so well, check it
protecting
out.
us.
It's now Brian. He says in China you can only be on TikTok for 45 minutes a day. Now, I've researched the TikTok algorithm, all right? Let me break this down, y'all. It's astounding. It's absolutely astounding. Modern warfare is not bullets. Drink that in. Your boy Lit's telling you, modern warfare is not bullets. Modern warfare is social engineering, all right? It's controlling information. That's
Mm-hmm.
modern warfare. So, what China has done is they have changed the algorithm for Chinese kids, because most kids are on TikTok. It's like the cool thing. And in China, guess what the algorithm brings up for people? It brings up scientists, engineers, new awards for innovation and technologies. It wholesome, incredible stuff you'd want your kid to be proud of seeing. Oh, there's another person who did this and it's so cool. Guess how they changed the algorithm in the United States? They changed the algorithm. Drink
They,
this in.
yeah, tell me how. I'm curious. I have a guess, but I want to.
Like the dumbest, like most stupidest, like slapstick or explosion or this thing or that thing. It's like all this, oh, look, ha ha ha. It's the dumbest shit
Mm-hmm.
is pumped on the American algorithm.
Yeah, so it's
It's not
purposeful.
exactly. So
Mm.
you're fully entertained. You're
Yeah.
not learning new stuff. So they actually flipped it. If we had the Chinese algorithm for TikTok, you'd find all these inspirational, incredible people who are doing real world stuff. And when you come to America on TikTok, it's completely different.
Oh yeah, and it's also a reflection of their schools too. Like these young kids are doing high level things in school. Meanwhile, you look at the kids in our elementary schools, and you're like, oh, what are they learning? They're still learning like baby stuff in fourth grade. Meanwhile, the kids in kindergarten are getting introduced to higher level math concepts than you would for a kindergartner. So it's just like you said, it is a form of warfare. How can we outdo everybody? How can we out educate everybody? And you know what, you got to give them credit for with that is pretty brilliant. That's like, yeah, you save the lives of your own people by not sending them out to a war. Meanwhile, you rot the brain of your enemy. That sounds like some Sun Tzu type thing. It's probably in the art of war somewhere.
That's exactly what it is. Now, to bring it back to high strangeness,
Mhm.
I want y'all to research Chinese pyramids. Look it up. There are ancient pyramids in China, then they know about it, all right? They know. And guess what they do to these Chinese pyramids? They build trees on top of them. So in 20, 30 years, you're going to fly over it and you're going to see trees. You're not going to see a pyramid. Now, They were asked, you just found all these ancient structures on Chinese soil. What are you going to unearth them and investigate? And they said, no, we're not going to. And they said, why aren't you going to go investigate them? And they said, China's history is very long. We'll go in 100 years, 200 years. And like, they're not even worried about it. They're not going to
They play
investigate
the
it.
long game.
They're
Yeah.
playing the long game.
Constantly. Oh gosh. And I've heard that there are people, want to think about Egypt when it comes to pyramids, but there are more pyramids in China than anywhere else in the world. And they're in jungles, they're everywhere. And it's amazing because, China being who they are and wanting to like put themselves ahead and like really show off their achievements. It's shocking that they're not going into this and revealing it to everyone. So that makes me even more curious about the why. Besides playing the long game, what are they holding back too? It must be really interesting if they're not wanting to show it to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's some ancient tech that they want to be able to use and have nobody know about, and they've already explored it.
I feel like our tech has been, I feel like we're like we used to be way more advanced in the past. If after all the research I've done, there's things that we just can't accomplish now. And it just break this down. Imagine there's an ancient advanced civilization. Okay. And they have cities in the past, modern cities in ancient times. Think about our cities. Think about the internet. Think about the computer. Think about the storage hard drive or an external hard drive or a thumb drive. Okay? Where is all your data? Where is all your data from your computer? It's on the storage device in the hard drive. And when you type a command through the interface on your computer, it accesses the hard drive and pulls the data out. Okay? Imagine everything you know. Do you write it in a book? Do you write it on a clay tablet and bake it in the sun? Or do you put it in your computer or your email? Your digital. It's digital. So drink this in. Ancient technologies holding digital information. What do you think would happen if there was a flood? I'm talking a big flood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you think would happen? Seriously, honest question.
It destroys the tech, right?
Exactly. Now imagine a city that gets flooded out and everyone dies and all this stuff is sitting there and thousands of years go by. What would you find after thousands of years when all the metal stuff had rusted from the elements? All the thumb drives, the computer drives, the hard drives have been destroyed and they dissolve. Even plastic like dissolves back in the earth. It just takes forever. So things decompose, okay? What do you think you would find? You know what you find?
Just the stone.
You find the stone structure out, like the remnants of the stone structure, and you find like Göbekli Tepe. Have you guys heard of Göbekli Tepe? Göbekli Tepe is considered the oldest ancient civilization, 14,000 years old. I believe it's in Turkey, and they buried it in sand. So it's one of the only places that is still intact, like the columns and everything, because it was purposefully buried in sand. Okay. And if you learn about ancient Kemet, which is Egypt, the first explorers who went to Egypt, they found everything buried in the sand. Okay. The Sphinx was buried. The temples were buried. And when they unearthed them, guess what they found about all the hieroglyphics? Guess what they noticed about the hieroglyphics?
About the hieroglyphics, that it was, I don't know if that, okay, I'm thinking of something else. Tell me, what did they notice?
They were all intricately painted with incredible color. Look it up, y'all. Go do your research. What happened is when they
preserved the paint. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when they removed the sand and people started going in and out, they changed the environment and the paint started to decay. And now it looks like, oh, there's just little remnants or not. But there are still some that are fully colored. And did you guys know in Egypt, the first people they sent there were artists, actual artists who documented by picture, they painted it, everything that they saw. And if you look up ancient Egyptian artistry, like from people who first found it, there's full scale pictures of what Egypt was before all of the decay. And they're all painted. They're all incredible. It's like, it's really amazing what you find there. And if you guys type into Google, ancient Egypt is only 1 to 3% discovered. Did you guys know that they've only discovered like 1 to 3% of Egypt?
I had no idea. I mean, I knew there was a lot to discover, but I had no idea that, that there's still 97% of Egypt left to discover. It's incredible.
Guess where it is?
Underground.
Underground. And check this out. There's a new scanner. It's called scalar technology. And scalar technology can vibratory pulse down into the earth, and they can actually see hollow spots. They can see mineral deposits like gold or silver. They can see water. They can tell where there's earth or where there's a cavern. And if you look from 2014, this is back in 2014, they released this, but they scanned this entire valley and they found giant, perfectly formed rooms underground. Only these rooms are separated and there's no entrance or doorway connecting them. They're just giant underground rooms, completely separated, and they're undiscovered. So when they actually dig down there, it's just going to be incredible.
But here's the thing that I wonder, maybe they already have, and they're just keeping it quiet, some of it.
That probably have.
And it really, yeah, it just, sorry, my head is going in like 20 different directions. But I also love the concept of the ancient Egyptians just finding it and moving into it and making it theirs, like, oh hey, here's a pyramid, let's put our dead pharaohs in it. Meanwhile it was some sort of piece of ancient tech, and we look at the ancient Egyptians as being, look how brilliant they are, that they built all this. It's just a burial chamber. Meanwhile they're just like, woohoo, free real estate, and just
how did you learn that? I think you're exactly right. How did you learn that the ancients found it later and like walked in and it was already there?
You know what? I pick up stuff all over the place. I don't remember how or where. It's, just like the curious rabbit holes. You read one thing and then you find another thing and you find another. But I think that was something, that I had heard relatively recently. And it makes a lot of sense because we don't, that there's giant, what are those, the big stone containers that are inside the pyramid, that they're like, you can't even carry this stuff really down the pyramid hallways. And how are they in here? And you'll find like intricately carvings inside the pyramids that look like they've been carved by a laser. And then you'll see like crudely carved things afterward,
Yeah.
Which kind of is like, the Egyptians came in, claimed it as their own and took their primitive tools and are like, we're kind of going to graffiti, do a little of our own thing on here. So now it's like completely far-fetched. Some people think this is far-fetched. I think it's far-fetched that the Egyptians did any of that, the ancient Egyptians. So it's unfortunate. Like there's just such a wealth of architecture and knowledge in Egypt. I'm like, can you just let us experience it? Can you like stop being so weird about it? Which I know is a lot to ask of these people. But
I read that book, Worlds Beyond the Poles, and I got so like, I remember just getting like really sad. I got sad because I wanted so badly to be able to explore Antarctica, and you can't. They made it fully illegal to go to certain parts of Antarctica, and the orders literally is you will be shot. There's a line, and if you cross it, they tell you turn around immediately. This is restricted area, and if you don't, you keep going, they just shoot you down. Look it up, y'all. It's really wild. But KBC had a question. Will you post that up there?
Yes,
He
here,
says
put it in
question
my
for Lit.
start so I could pull it back up. So KBC said, question for Lit. People outside crypto say crypto is a Ponzi scheme in general, but stock market is the same also. Is this true or no?
So when you look at legacy finance, I'll break this down for you from like all the years that I've been in the stock market, and I've learned a lot. All right, I learned so much at a very high level. I had to learn this stuff. What I learned is there's something called a market maker, and the market maker is what you need to understand this question. You are a user at your computer. You research stocks, you research companies, you research the owner, you make an informed, consentive decision that I want to buy this holding. So you go to your Schwab account, you go to your Robinhood, whatever you do, and you place the order. You connect your bank account or you wire money in, and you put money in an account, you do your research, and you put the order through with the funds to back it. People think that the brokerage is the one who approves the trade. However, the brokerage does not approve the trade. The brokerage sends that order to a market maker, and the market maker has to stamp the approval, yes or no. In blockchain, the market maker would be considered like the validator. If the validator does not approve the transaction in a block and send it through to stack it on the blockchain and increase the block height of a blockchain, that transaction will not go through. That's what SBF is trying to do. He's trying to be able to freeze transactions at the validator level and stop them from going through. So your crypto transaction will not go through. In legacy finance, that trade where you say, I want to buy 1,000 shares of Apple, and it goes through and it goes into the market maker, those almost always go through. Okay. When you start finding obscure OTC penny stocks or different things, there may be a reason that this market maker doesn't want that order to go through. They can stop the order. So your broker, like Schwab or Robinhood or whoever you use, no matter what they do, they can't actually put the stock in your account. There's this validation process from the market maker level. So if you understand every stock that's purchased has to go through that process, then you realize, whoa, how much power does that give them? I'm a retail investor. That's what I call them. People in the stock market who buy stock on their computer from their home, those are called retail investors. Then there's something called institutional investors. And an institutional investor, this is like your JP Morgans, this is your Goldman Sachs. These are these firms on Wall Street where they have a financial firm that is registered. And those registered companies that are institutions, what do you think happens when they put an order in and it goes from their brokerage to the market maker? Do you think they're approved or rejected? They're approved. Okay. However, when we look at GameStop and AMC, go back a couple years, social media on Reddit, Wolf of Wall Street, the dude, had an account and he started telling people, look, they're shorting this stock. Everyone get in and buy it up. And what happened is so many people got together. They all aped into these holdings and they actually almost bankrupted a company. They might have bankrupted one of these institutions. I forget exactly, it was years ago. But what they did is eventually I got a call from, I have like high up brokers in the game in this Bay Area. They're like super gnarly dudes. And they said, Lit, you better not be trading that stuff. You better not be involved. And I'm like, why? And they said, people are going to get hurt. Now, how do you think people got hurt? Everyone buys into this thing and raises the rates up. What happened? The market maker stopped people from being able to sell it. They actually froze the holding.
Gosh,
You understand?
that was terrible.
Exactly. Why did that happen? That happened because the system of the stock market is set up to control. So when
Mhm.
people call it a Ponzi, it's kind of like it's controlled. Yeah, I guess you could call it a Ponzi, but like it's just there's centralized control. And that's why people got into crypto. So you could cryptographically trade peer-to-peer network outside of a centralized regulator, outside of a centralized validator that would change and control your transactions. And that's why this FTX meltdown is such a big deal, because it's looking like we're going to have industry-wide crackdown. It's looking like stable coins are going to be removed, and only government approved stable coins will be there. So it'll be like your Bank of
CBDCs.
America. Like Bank of America will have a stable coin.
Mm.
And you understand it's going to be like a fully, and if you take that process of validation, like those transactions will go through. And if you're not in an approved network, if your social score is too low, if you do the wrong stuff, if you talk like we do, you're in for trouble. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you, like, it's not that I don't know. I would like it if we it was a little different, it'd be a lot cooler.
But also, here's the way I look at it too. Like, but also, when the market maker put the stop to selling, the GameStop stocks, it was working for the benefit of the hedge funds, to help the hedge funds. So it just shows who the market works for, who the market benefits. And to me, it just shows how fake everything is. The stock market, to me, that's fake. Like these shares of a company, it's all BS. So for me, I'm like, the stock market's fake. Crypto feels real. Our fiat currency, because it's not pegged to gold, is not real. But crypto actually has like a computer program, it's programmed to be real. There's like programming backing it. So my most basic non-eloquent way of saying it is, to me, crypto is the most real of those things. And that's why I am fond of it, and why I what's it called? I'm optimistic about it too.
Yeah,
For me.
the Tornado Cash is real crypto, when you can change the address that it was sent and you can't track it. But look what happened. The owner of Tornado Cash is in jail for almost a lifetime sentence right now. This is the world we live in. Okay. So, like, this is hectic, y'all. This is like, you're going to look back in time, and this is going to be one of those critical events. And the final answer for that stock market question from KBC is that stock market companies can create share offerings. And what they can do is essentially they can create new stock and dilute everyone who's a holder. And that's what you saw in the OTC market after GameStop and AMC. The regulators came in and they started changing the whole penny stock market, and institutions started buying into these penny stocks. And usually, traditionally, if you buy in a company before institutions get there, you can retire, because they put hundreds of millions or tens of millions in. And if you got in before, that money is a buy wall that pushes you up and you're rich. However, in this case, what they did after GameStop and AMC is institutions would buy a stock, one company, and they would create 50 million new shares, and they would dump them on the open market. And what that did is it took the circulating supply and it doubled it or tripled it. So the creation of new shares dumped on your head, yeah, it's kind of like it's like you can't just keep up with it.
No, absolutely.
Everyone does work for the market maker. Yeah, well, they're controlling, it would be like the equivalent would be if we're talking on the stream and someone says something we don't like they stop the transmission from going through, so people can't actually hear the words we're saying. Like, that's what it would be like.
Yeah, and that GameStop thing. I mean, I was already suspicious of the stock market and just never wanted anything to do with it. Even when I got out of school and started teaching, and you're doing your onboarding with the school district, and they're offering you all these retirement and savings and investment accounts, they were shocked that I turned everything down. I'm like, no, it's all garbage. It's all BS. But so I've always kind of viewed, the stock market and traditional finance like that. But for me, that whole GameStop fiasco and then and what went on with the market maker, it completely pulled back the curtain and just confirmed it all for me. And I'm like,
Yeah, it
I
did.
never want to be in this. It's so ridiculous. It's so rigged. Somebody I know who works in hedge funds had likened it to even like the hedge fund traders, that it's like gambling. She's like, all they need next to their computer is the handle, the slot machine, because it's just so fake. It's such BS, such garbage. So we've been going on about 2.5 hours, so we'll probably start wrapping up. But before we go, can I just throw you another question from my saved list of
Yeah.
questions here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you good with that? Okay.
Yeah.
So the question was, the Hexagon contractor wanted to know, what is the deal with the pyramid on Mars? So have you gone that far down
Yeah,
the
so
pyramid rabbit hole?
the pyramid on Mars is a 5-pointed pyramid, and essentially there's also like there's a face on Mars, and like it gets really interesting when you get into other planets, because if you read Worlds Beyond the Poles, like it's a
Mhm.
really wild book. It's a really cool book, but it talks about other planets, and in a nutshell, what we were told about space and planets is not how it outlines it in this book. It outlines the reality is totally different, how they're connected. And I don't totally know like how I feel about other planets. I do know that the distancing of these stones they've found and the pyramids that they've found is not a natural formation from what I've researched. It's 100% not a natural formation. So that would lead to an ancient advanced technology or group of people living on Mars. And there's also research that shows the ecology is like a gigantic disaster happened and burned everything up, like a giant like nuclear war or something. So there's also that, and the remnants are what you're seeing left after some giant catastrophe. But I'm not an expert on that stuff, so I think
Yeah.
that's all I remember about the research.
No, I
Other
mean, there's
planets are CGI. If you
yeah,
research that, there might be some truth to
yeah,
that.
Brian and I have some different views on that, because I am a believer in space and other planets, and I do think there's a secret space program, and that there are bases on Mars, and there's something more going on Mars. So when the Hexagon contractor put that question up there, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm into this. Yeah, the pyramids on, because if you do believe that Mars is real, yeah, like you said, that it's not coincidence, the fact that there just happens to be. And I love that NASA's like, oh no, it was a shadow, it was the angle, it was this, it was that. No. And we could all see it. They made a mistake by releasing it to us because we have eyes. So
Well,
um
if you go to like the actual moon landing, okay, look, I don't want to go too hectic into this, but like there's a couple points that are really really weird about the moon landing, okay? One of
mhm,
them is the picture of the Apollo spacecraft, and if you zoom in on it, this is like the 60s, all right? So back then, they didn't have the technology we do to actually review stuff and understand it. But now we do. It's been a long time. There's pictures of the Apollo spacecraft held together with duct tape. Okay? Look it up, y'all. There's actually like duct tape on this thing. And you have to think that has to be strong enough to go to a whole nother planet. Now you
mhm.
look at the footage of Mars, and there's just a couple things that are really weird, okay? One of them is the flag. The flag is waving with wind. And if you understand the physics of being on Mars with the gravity, it doesn't have wind elements like we do. It's 25% the gravity. That's why people bounce and bounce, because 75% of the gravity is less, is what they tell us. There's only 25%, so people are taking these big bounces. The flag shouldn't be waving like Earth conditions with the wind.
Yeah.
The most telling thing that I have found that really makes me feel weird about it is there's a photo, there's like a video journal of the moon guys exploring the moon from the 60s. And they show a hillside and they show a dude bouncing down the hillside. And it's like day 4. And then on day 7, like days later, they show footage of a dude jumping down the hillside and there's another guy walking behind it. And they call it, oh, this is day 7. We're exploring a different area. And some smart dude with new technology spliced them together. And it is a carbon copy of exactly the same clip of the one dude jumping down the hill. And in the second edit, they added another guy. And he proved that it's exact same jumps. It's like they took the clip and added another dude into it and said it was day 7. So that never made sense to me. And then you have to ask, like, if that technology was ready-made, why isn't there 1,000 expeditions to the moon since then? Mm-hmm. How come there is not, like, what are we up to, 4K resolution? I want to see a 4K resolution of a spaceship taking off and going all the way through the Van Allen belts, which are belts of radiation that incinerate whatever goes through it, okay, and land on another planet. I want to see that. What I've seen is that these spaceships like launch off and then they go with the curvature of the Earth and then take out. That's what I've researched. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying I'm authority. I don't know. This is just stuff that I've researched. So I don't know. I don't know if any of that stuff is real. And when you look at NASA modeling, it's all 3D renderings. Have you ever wondered why is NASA showing 3D renderings and not actual real footage? It's a little weird.
Yeah, I guess, I take the more extreme view where, we have the tech and we have this secret, this secret space program, using this fallen angel technology, these different alien races being the fallen angels, and that there's a lot going on out there. So they have to give us the fake footage so that we can't see all the civilizations elsewhere out there. So so I am like to the other extreme of everybody here in the chat.
No, you're exactly right. And if you research nuclear bomb tests, what you'll find is that there are it's all conspiracies, but there's conspiracies that when they set off a nuclear bomb, you can see crafts fleeing at record speed. And there's another one that says there's a certain angle of the Earth where they have a satellite and you can kind of see like the Earth like this, the outer edge of the Earth, and on the round edge they show in space thousands of crafts. Thousands. So there's kind of the theory of like there's nothing out there, aliens have never contacted us, or there are commonplace and there are thousands of ships everywhere and it's absolutely packed out there. It's kind of one or the other. And what did they say? That someone has read that book? Well, where's my boy Clintron's Lights in the Firmament? My man has read that book. That's exactly what they say. And this whole flat Earth, round Earth thing, I'm not going to go there, but I'm just going to say that the physics of our eyeball, okay, our eyeball, think about your actual eye, is convex and concave. You understand? It has an arch to it. The actual arch of your eyeball is like a dome. Look at the shape of your eye. Think about it. When you turn sideways, it's not flat. Your eye is rounded. Yeah. So in this research, you find out that everything we see is filtered through a round eye. You understand? Yes. So the way our mind works with the light filtering through in everything I described earlier in the chat, we only see what our physical senses allow us to see. So we might be living in a completely different world, but the way that our senses decode that reality is what we think is real.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of it comes down to perception. And that's why, perception is like always this topic of debate, and what is perception and how it's different for everyone. That's why, you could be two people in the same family and just have like two different Well, like you said, it's like watching a car accident, two different complete perceptions of reality.
Totally
Um,
right.
yeah, so I mean, and that's the beauty of our country. That's the beauty of the world. Okay, people are less tolerant for different opinions now, but for the most part, like in this chat, we can all share different opinions and express them and throw these different ideas around and learn things from each other. You know, we're so fortunate that we live in a time with internet where we can do the research and we can discuss, in which we can debate all our different perspectives. And so I appreciate you being here and
Yeah.
chatting with us. And I appreciate everyone in the chat and everybody watching in the replay. Um, I'm gonna close this out in a minute, but is there anything that you want to say before you go, or let
Yeah,
everyone know
I
even
just
though I
I
think
just
everybody knows your channels.
I just want to tell you all, yeah, you can find the My Life is Awesome. I have a crypto channel, and I'm very passionate about, you know, being being real. And I just want to just tell y'all from the heart, like, all this stuff we're talking about is, whether it's conspiracy or whether it's unpopular opinion, uh, whether it's mainstream knowledge, whether you find yourself a Republican or a Democrat, or you find yourself a conspiracy theorist that doesn't believe in anything, or you find yourself not caring about anything that happens with any of it. Wherever you find yourself, I just want to remind you, at the end of the day, you're a spirit inside a body, and your time is limited. So please, from the bottom of your heart, coming from your coach Lit, live the absolute best life you can. Take advantage of every moment you possibly can. Whether you believe in this stuff or not, it doesn't even matter. I don't even know what I believe about all this stuff. Like, a lot of this stuff I talked about is just like, I've researched it. It's opinions I've researched. But what I truly believe in is, whatever input comes at you, it's your job to balance yourself and make sure that you make every day count, because people you love and care for are going to die. Your pet, your beloved pet, is going to die one day, probably before you. So the goal of life is to actually enjoy each day. The stupid stuff, all the stupidest stuff. Go laugh with people you care about. Go make fun of yourself. Go live your life. Exercise, stretch, eat healthy, but also eat some junk food. You understand? Live your life and
Balance.
have fun and keep your heart open, and you'll have a much more awesome life. That's what I want to close with.
Yes, and I love that because that just comes right back to your name. My life is awesome. You know.
Totally.
True. And yeah, so thank you, for doing what you do and for being I think the most positive guy in the hex community.
Thank you.
And I know that you stream mainly on crypto, but I do, because you have such wide breadth of knowledge on this. I do hope that you sprinkle some of this in too. Okay, maybe not through TikTok as we discussed, but even through your streams. Everybody seems into it. It definitely seems that there's a market for it on YouTube. And yeah, so I'm gonna also, I mean, like I said, everybody here in the chat knows who you are, but for anybody else who may be new to Lit's channel, I'm gonna drop his info in the description after this. So I'm just gonna close this out here. So are you gonna hang for a few minutes after I close it out so we can, or do you have to run?
I have to go, but I'll hang out for
We'll
like 5 or 10. But I just want to give a quick shout out to Crypto Journeyman. You're a channel OG, always spreading such good love. So much love to you, bro. Tin Top channel OG. So much love to you, bro. I really appreciate you being here. And you got a super chat, and you earned it. Great job, girl.
Oh,
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for being
And
here,
thank you,
y'all. I look
Brian.
forward. Brian, major love. Torin, much love. I love seeing Torin. So just big shout out to y'all. Thank you so much for being a part of my journey. I got nothing but love for you.
Yes. So thank you
All right,
guys so
y'all.
much. I'm going to put you in the green room and I'll see you in a few.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So, and thank you again, Brian. Thank you all for always being so awesome. Thank you, Brian, for still being nice to me, even though we don't always see eye to eye. Thank you for your kindness, and thank you all, guys, for hanging with us on this. I mean, it's been fun, an almost 3-hour stream. So hope to see you all next week. Oh, and thank you so much, Clintrons. I appreciate that. I love and appreciate you all. Hope to see you all next week. So thank you to anyone watching in the replay. Oh, and thank you so much, Crypto Journeyman. You guys are awesome. And big thank you to Lit. I'm so happy to finally connect and talk weirdness with him. And so I will see you guys next week. And Brian, you've always reminded me to say this, and I always feel embarrassed, but I'm going to say it again. And if there's anybody who wants a wallet donation link, it's in the description. So thank you guys so much. Oh, yes. Thank you, Torin. Please like and subscribe, and hope you all have an amazing week. Mwah! Love you guys. And I'll see you next week. Bye. Oh, yep. Thank you, Tin Top. Hit the like and subscribe. All right. You guys have a wonderful night.